All right. Welcome to the show, everybody. Apex Inner Game pod class, where we have high level discussions about relationships, dating, sex, and mindset topics and issues. Today, we're going to talk about the whole Steven Crowder and his wife thing blowing up all over the internet. All right. But what's interesting is there's just a lot of similar narratives going around and a lot of different things being said. And I don't know that it's all completely accurate. And you'll notice and be aware and take note of the social conditioning that kind of happens unintentionally, even with good, intending content creators and voices that are out there talking about this. I've seen a couple of people that I actually respect, not so much like, in the red pill space type people or manosphere space. I don't really care about that anyway. That just it's not in that, not necessarily those, although I've seen some really weird takes from those spaces too. But just more or less respected people in behavioral sciences, psychology, the people I would consider respectful. I think getting some things wrong, okay, about this whole thing. So we're going to unpack this today. My little intro is thanks to Glenn, who hooked that up. All right, Glenn's my producer, but I needed to do this on StreamYard today, which is working some things out with the platform. And I don't have any soundboard, but I would do the champ is here. I would do the champ is here if I could
All
do the
gravy,
champ is
baby.
here. What's up, man?
It's all gravy, baby. How you doing?
Good, man. How you feeling? I know it's pretty late over there in Japan, right?
Yeah, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but it's no big deal. This
Yeah.
is important. I want to be here on your channel, and I want to be talking about the situation because I just think there needs to be a lot of light shined on this situation that is kind of being glossed over.
Oh yeah. No, same. So this will be good. And we're definitely gonna give this an expert take, we'll say, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And really a good solid breakdown in a way that the rest of the internet isn't doing. Because I mean, arguably, we're both also experts in human behavior. I consider you at this point an expert as well. I mean, having to develop the body language course that you did required a lot of research and development in understanding body language. And so you can look at behavior and body language, some of those things, and you're going to have a more educated take than the average person. I obviously have my training in body language and stuff like that. I mean, mine's more from as an operational guy, like military stuff, but I was trained by CIA basically methodology and interrogation methodologies to be able to figure out human behavior. And there's a lot of people out there promoting that they do that, but it's kind of funny. It's not like there's the Wharton school of, body language out there. I mean, anybody can try to say they are, but reality is that there's very few that are really, really good at it. But I think both of us can get a pretty good take on what's going on with this video and really break it down. I did want to show one thing though first. Let's see. I want to share the screen. We're going to show this badass video first though. All right, guys, get ready for this one. This is before we jump into the stuff. This is my favorite video on the internet right now. There we go.
I am not a man that believes in luck. I am not a man that believes in destiny. I believe in discipline. I believe in being powerful. I believe in being self-reliant. I believe in mentorship. And most importantly, I believe in me. I refuse to be a victim. And I know that every day I make a choice. a choice to be better than before, a choice to do what is right for me, a choice to not live as a slave to my emotions. And all of these choices will lead me to the burden that is heavy, and that burden is greatness. We live in the most prosperous times in human history. There is no excuse that outweighs the greatness that is in you that can get you the life that you want. Every day, we must make a choice to improve our lives or to be victims of inaction. The price of greatness is one we must pay every day, and it is a choice that I always make. Although the path we walk can be lonely, it is the most important thing we must do. Sometimes when you choose the life of greatness, you need a little help. The best part of my journey is that I'm not alone, and neither are you.
Sick. Did the audio come in good? Hopefully.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it was shared. Maybe my headphones are messed up. I don't know, but I think it came. I mean, I heard it. It just sounded a little weird on my end, but I
All
mean,
right.
the point is there.
Sickest commercial on the internet, especially that dude. I don't know. He's a combat vet. I don't know who he is, but he's pretty cool. He's doing pull-ups. No, I'm just kidding. No, but it's exciting, man. So, I just wanted to get a little plug in for the Masculine Empowerment Network there, and that's I'm happy to be a part of that. Been a part of that with you for a couple of years now, and really helping change dudes' lives and help them out. And May 8th is when it's gonna start the enrollment, right? So. So yeah, man. Anything you want to say about it before we move into the topic?
I mean, look, I think it's kind of get to the point my results are speaking for themselves. You know, we all know who Fresh and Fit is, and I was Myron's day one guy. Before Myron was even Myron, I helped him cut him teeth on the principles that he is changing the culture war in America with. I've helped you with your brand. I've helped Andrew with the legal mindset. Behind the scenes, I've helped all the big people: Rich, Rollo, Donovan, Troy Francis, Ryan Stone, yourself, Fresh and Fit. And, Fresh and Fit gave birth to Just Pearly Things. And Fresh and Fit gave birth to the Whatever podcast, which are now huge things. And now you have the whole Valuetainment brand tailing along with the Red Pill thing. So, I'm going to keep doing what I keep doing, which is training guys behind the scenes in the Masculine Empowerment Network. And you've been instrumental in that and in inner game healing, because it gets to a point where, there's awareness, but after you have awareness, you have to start taking action, or there's going to be no change. You can be as red pilled as you want, but we see all these dorks on Twitter who are these infinite red pill gods, and they have 20,000, 40,000, 50,000 followers, but they're sticks. They weigh 120 pounds. They make no money, and they sell a $7 gum course on how to be an alpha male. And that's fine. But if you want to be somebody in this life, you got to take action to turn it around. And that's what we do. And that's the only way this thing's going to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. I'm not stopping the Masculine Empowerment Network anytime in my entire life. I'll be doing that until the day I die. And if you're wanting to making a change in your life, join the Masculine Empowerment Network. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, fat, old, doesn't matter. We'll turn your life around if you do the work. It's that simple.
Heck yeah, man. Love it, dude. So just wanted to get that quick in there and that badass commercial in there. That looks cool. So now let's talk about abuse. Now we're gonna break down the Steven Crowder little event. And what's interesting, it's been out. A lot of people are talking about this. Like everybody's talking about it, but it's like I feel like the narrative is a little bit skewed or off. Now, I'm going to say a few things about it, and we'll show the 3-minute video, just what we're actually looking at, and then we'll break it down. But for those who haven't seen it, but first thing I want to say is we can't clearly decipher the nature of their 9-year relationship in a 3-minute video. So a lot of people want to make assumptions that they can't make about these two people, about this couple, because Steven Crowder is a really public figure. I mean, his fallout with the Daily Wire was over a contract, which they were going to pay him $12 million to do what he does, which is hard to imagine. You know what I mean? For me, that because we kind of do the same thing on YouTube, and he get paid, Daily Wire would push $12 million his way, but he wanted 30. It didn't work out, whatever, and so they've been in conflict because of that. But we can't make assumptions about who he is as a person. We can't clinically diagnose him, for example, as a narcissist, which I see all over the internet. He might be, I don't know, but we can't do that clinical diagnosis because we see a video clip and it causes a reaction, you know what I mean, to men and women out there. So then they're going to make this diagnosis. And so there's a lot of extreme behavior and bullshit on the internet that clouds us from really getting a clear view or picture of what goes on in these situations. And the reason why I want to highlight this too is because I think that the way that Steven Crowder acts here, which I don't defend, by the way, how he acts, I think that he has poor frame and poor skills with his wife here. And I think that some of his communication is in fact toxic. But that being said, there's a lot of manipulation and things happening on her side as well that's being overlooked. And I think a lot of guys find themselves in this default spot where they are getting angry and upset, elevating their voice and using toxic communication patterns, which, women are guilty of that just as much as men are, of using toxic communication patterns and getting angry and upset. But the difference is guys can be accused so easily of abuse now for that stuff. And I want guys to see what this looks like on camera, see what the reactions are from everybody, sort of like to understand that if you are on the outs with your woman, going through a divorce, going through a breakup or whatever, and you're the person to lose frame like this or lose your cool, expect everybody to be against you. You know what I mean? You're not going to have, the general population is not going to see what's going on behind sort of the behavior, and they're going to accuse you of being an abuser and a narcissist and all these things. And a lot of guys, I would say probably most guys have been caught in this circumstance where they've gotten angry or upset with a woman that they're with. It's a heated argument. And then they're the person, trying to defeat her with logic and using these techniques that he's using and coming across really just kind of like a douchebag and a weaker male and all that. But it's like, instead of just saying, hey, you know what I mean? Let's delete this dude. But
yeah, I got it.
Instead of just like saying, hey, that's just not a good way to communicate with your chick. Let's talk about that. They're being elevated to abuser status, and that's something that is a problem because there are actual abuse victims out there, women who are abused for real and in abusive situations and struggling to get out of it. And I think that by broadening the definition of abuse to mean a guy gets mad at a girl, or a guy doesn't communicate in the best way that he should, to expand that definition, that is harmful to those women and some of those men who are in abusive relationships, actual abuse, you know what I mean? Where they feel trapped and there's like a lot of problems there. So that's my take on it, but my initial take, but we'll watch the video. Any initial comments that you got before we show the first clip?
I just think that ultimately, I just think that just in general, Americans are the worst at relationships. And I think that this is definitely a loss in frame for sure. And it just sucks that despite the fact that she was pregnant and all the money and stuff is involved. And I'm sorry, but like getting married in America as a man is just fucking stupid. I'm sorry. It's sad to say, but like legally speaking, it's stupid. And so I think he kind of got to that point with the squealing and stuff at one point during on the camera
Right.
because he was just that's the same thing that happened with Amaranth and her boyfriend or her husband rather.
Yeah.
She wasn't falling in frame, and when guys are dealing with a woman who's not falling in their frame and they try to fucking endure, they just end up suffering and losing themselves. And the reality is, when a woman just doesn't fall into your frame, you gotta walk away. You
Right.
just have to walk away. You gotta fucking pick up your ball, go home, try again with another girl, and that's just it. Because and listen, bro, this bitch is evil for releasing that fucking video. I don't care what anybody says. That's a fucking low blow to be the mother of your children, to know he has this gigantic public face and has this giant brand. She has just created a whirlwind of trouble for him.
Yeah.
And that's fucked up. She's a dirtbag. And if anybody's the monster, I would say it's this chick. No, I don't think Steven Crowder's a monster. I just think he's a guy that fucking made a mistake.
Right.
And I love how the internet is just like ripping this guy to shreds off of like a 2.5, 3 minute clip.
Exactly. Making a lot of presumptions, and I'm going to go over some of those presumptions too in a minute. We'll go and share. I'm going to share it from Fresh and Fit's their version. I'm just looking where they would have the whole video. Fresh and Fit did do a really good breakdown. I watched it over the weekend. So like those of you guys who do watch Myron and Fresh's podcast, those of you guys who don't like the podcast, so the white claw girls in the evening show, they sometimes do good breakdowns, man, and they did a really good one here. So like I suggest after this one you guys go check it out. But we're gonna not just repeat what they did. We have new I should say fresh information on it. But let's go to the share screen here and the share screen here. That's not what I wanted. I'll go that one. All right.
Are you sharing rightly?
What's that?
You're not sharing the correct thing. It's just you gotta close that again.
Oh, I am. Okay, hold on.
You just share make sure you select the whatever tab you want to show, which is like I guess the Crowder video. What is it on Twitter or?
Oh yeah, wait a second. I did I thought maybe I hit the wrong one. 1 second. So we're gonna do present. That's why I'm glad I have you here, man, because I can't see when I'm looking at. Okay, so let's see. That one. It was Candace Owens, that one. All right. So share audio tab. Okay, cool. Can you see it now?
Yeah, that's it.
All right, sweet. Well, we'll just start. We'll start right where it's at. It's fine.
No,
How did we manage this? No, you're not taking the car.
Steven,
You're not taking the car.
Steven,
You are not
then I
taking
will ask how much to do that. Would you like me to ask?
the car.
It's not correct, Steven.
Get an Uber.
Okay, Steven, I can't.
Feeling some constraints?
Steven.
Like, I can't
Steven.
go. Listen to me. Listen to me. You want to walk out right now? Listen to me. I can't go to the gym. I can't go to my parents. I can't call my friends. I can't go. I can't be home. You're going to take the car and leave me here. Hilary, just think of how boxed in you've made me.
What do you need me to pick up? I'll get it. I'll be back when I'm back.
No, that doesn't work either. You'll be back when you're back. That doesn't work either.
That's when he squeals.
Yeah, I know.
Do you understand the difference
It's
between
it's cringeworthy. It really is.
second and you're going, I'll be back when I'm back?
Steven,
I want everyone to pay attention to the body language of both her and him too.
The only way out of it is discipline and respect. It's the only way out of it, or we're at an impasse.
we are at an impasse.
Good. Because you can't have any discipline and respect.
Yeah.
There you go. You throw your hand, you give up so easily.
I don't give up.
Hilary, you give up so easily. I just said the only way out of this is discipline and respect. You said, then we're at an impasse.
Steven, no, we are at an impasse, okay? I love you, but Steven, your abuse is sick. Your abuse
Watch it.
is sick.
Watch it. Fucking watch it.
I'm gonna let go. I'll get what you need me to get. And I need some space. You need to just stop engaging for a little bit. Okay? I love you. I love you very much.
I don't love you. That's the big problem. I've never received love from you. And the fact is, when I go, look, I need an A, B, C, and D, you just be disciplined about it. You go, no. But I love you more than life itself. Okay. Put on some gloves. No. But I love you more than life itself. That's not fair. It's not fair, and it's disingenuous. Hilary, you're right. We're at an impasse. Become someone, listen to me, day in and day out, worthy of a wife. No, not as a wife. I didn't say as a wife. Hilary, come on now.
I'm not gonna engage. I'm not gonna engage anymore. I'm gonna go. I'll text me what you need. I'll get you what you need. I love you. I'm committed to you.
Sounds scripted.
Uh-huh.
Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm not gonna.
Are you committed enough to do those things? You're not committed to anything. You're not committed to anything.
You got to sit
You just
down and
said
shut
I
up.
love you. Committed to it. Walk the
That
dog,
point.
put on some gloves.
I need to.
Walk the dog, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things? Are you committed enough to do those things?
I'm good.
Walk the dog, put on some gloves. Are you committed enough to get the medication the dog? No, you take that in.
All right. So that was taken over from the Fresh and Fit, our boys over there. And so let's so initial take what I want to talk about right now, first of all, is the topic of abuse. All right, because that is what he's being accused of. He's being accused of being a monster. He's being accused of being an abuser based on this clip. What do you think about that, John?
I just think American women are just a black hole of insufferability. And honestly, Candace Owens need to shut her fucking stupid mouth. I watched her 16-minute video on how much she doesn't care. And you know, she just doesn't like, dude, all these people, okay, either you and I are fucking abusive monsters, and so is Steven Crowder, and everybody else is just living this perfect fucking marriage, right? Or these people casting these stones are full of shit too. I doubt Candace Owens is the most perfect fucking flawless wife that never catches an attitude, never does anything wrong. I mean, I just think that's extremely pompous and arrogant of everybody to pile on to this guy for absolutely what? Like, this guy, like, here's the thing with cancel culture in America, right? They're demanding people with a message to be as perfect as possible. You know,
Only when those people it's all about their narrative, though, you know. So
yeah, like they want people to have the most perfect body, the most perfect hair, the most perfect teeth, the most perfect speech, the most perfect finances. Only then will these imperfect fucking curmudgeons, the bottom feeders of society, be like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is okay now. And, it's retarded. It's fucking ridiculous. It's hypocritical and it's not realistic. You know what I mean? It's just not realistic at all.
Right. I'm going to do a couple of things too, just to interrupt my show and our flow a little bit. If you guys are in the chat and you have a question, go ahead and, throw a super chat or whatever. I'll try to catch it later. If you try to keep the autism to a minimum, like the repeat, messages on multiple accounts attacking my guests, you guys can just cool that shit if you can, because we're trying to have a good show where we're talking about this stuff and breaking this down, not deal with the autism and retardedness. So that's it. So like if you guys got your weird criticisms of stuff, just keep it off. I don't want to hear it. Okay, if it's not about this topic, then shut up and listen or go someplace else. Literally, I don't care. So all right, so now back to the thing. Like, yeah, the thing is, it's not abuse, and that's my main point. This is what a strategy that tends to happen in cancel culture and also in the age of just the internet, where the more extreme viewpoint gets all the clicks, likes, and views. It's like he can't just be somebody who handled his wife poorly. You know what I mean? He or whatever in an argument. He's got to be an abusive monster. And shame on the Daily Wire and Candace Owens for weaponizing that. Because, and that's one thing I want guys to recognize too. Guys who are supporting basically the attack that's kind of does happen on masculinity nowadays, especially in the West. Guys, I want you to understand that your traditional conservatives and a lot of these pundits are not your friend.
Yeah.
They and this includes the churches nowadays too. They're deferring to the gynocentric social order and leadership and basically, the narrative in the churches right now is to be a good husband, a good man, and serve your wife. And there's no discussion, very little of what it means to serve a husband, and so there isn't a two-way street right now due to their ideology. When a woman is out of pocket, is not really being a good partner, is not serving her husband in that Christian model that they're supposedly have, everybody turns to the husband and the guy and says, well, what are you doing wrong to try to fix it? And I get that in clients, and I get that with people asking me questions all the time. It's like, I lost frame. What do I do to get it back? Well, yeah, that's because guys take personal responsibility. That's a great question. But sometimes a woman is out of pocket. Sometimes she's behaving poorly. Sometimes she's not, holding up her end of the bargain or being fair. And I'm not saying all these things either about Steven Crowder's wife, Hilary. I actually don't know, but nobody looks at the fact that could be an option here. You know what I mean? That the option from this 3-minute video could be that she's not a good partner. And that this has been an ongoing argument for a while now of her, using her manipulation tactics, which I'll get into in a minute, to not do her part. He could be also this abusive narcissist. She could be in a narcissistic abuse cycle. You know what I mean? Now that could be true too. Could
you explain? Could you
So
explain a narcissistic abuse cycle?
Right. So a narcissistic abuse cycle would be where in the beginning, there's a lot of love bombing and perfect partner stuff, right? That gets them hooked. And then once in the relationship, especially can accelerate after a marriage and a commitment. And basically the other person can't freely leave without having to do a lot of paperwork, and some legal stuff. What'll happen then is a devaluing of the partner. So it's very possible that she has tried to be a good person somewhere along the line in 9 years of a marriage, and he continually would move the goalpost, saying you're not doing enough, and continue to move that goalpost, and then use that as a means of devaluing her and showing contempt towards her. That could be what is happening in that relationship, but that's not the narcissistic cycle. Is just the cycle of a toxic relationship. It doesn't go hand in hand with abuse, which is criminal, usually involves violence or extreme emotional abuse language and things that are on more of the extreme end of it, right? To constitute something as physical or mental abuse, you're depriving them of their basic needs. You're using a lot of manipulative language, not just manipulative, but we're talking serious name calling and some serious, like, you're a piece of crap, you're this, really like taking it to that other level. It's how extreme it is. And also coercion and withholding basic needs like food, water, shelter, things like that. And locking somebody, keeping somebody prisoner. Now someone will say, well, he wasn't going to let her take the car. Well, she did take the car and drove off. So it was a coercive threat, which isn't healthy, but it wasn't actually an executed thing. She was never prisoner in her own home. Like, there's a lot of things that abusers do that are very, seriously damaging to their partners that he is not doing. And so we need to draw the line of where abuse is. And I think it's safe to say, based on what we can see here, that this is not abuse. It may be him being a toxic partner in some ways. That could be the case. Like, if I could dig deeper into a 9-year relationship outside of the media narrative, we might find that. We might also find that she's a toxic partner too. Sometimes a narcissist gets in with another narcissist. That happens all the time, and they're devaluing each other and destroying each other. So we could find all of these things to be true, but what the media does is they take, especially the day, someone like Candace Owens, the Daily Wire. I'm really disappointed because I like a lot of Candace Owens' work that she's done in the past, but they're taking this clip and they're weaponizing it against this guy, and they're using this gynocentric social order where everyone defers to the female and the female can do no wrong as a means to weaponize against this person. And that is pretty sinister when you think about it. I'm not a Steven Crowder defender or fan. I don't watch any political crap. I really don't, because most of it's toxic on all sides. But whether that he could be a bad person doesn't matter. What they're doing and how they're weaponizing this is something to take note of, because that can happen to you guys in your own lives, right? Because women will record things on their phones, right? They'll make accusations. They'll go to their social medias. This could affect you in a court case if you're trying to do divorce proceedings, depending on where you're at, where you get painted as an abusive partner when you're not really. It's just the definition was expanded. This could give you socially ostracized. This could cause you to lose economic opportunities, jobs. This could be a problem for you guys, if you're not managing it. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it. What I never get into pop culture, I'm a little bit more cerebral than that, which is why I don't have many followers. But it's a thinking show. We think here, but it's like, this is an important thing to notice socially, man, because guys can be victimized in these situations. In my opinion, even though Steven Crowder may have been a dick and might be a horrible person for all I know, I think the media is victimizing him here. But
Yeah, I just think I just think, like, it's just, I really just don't get. I mean, this is just a lesson in female angst and bitterness 101. That's Candace Owens. She, like, clearly has a bone to pick with Steven Crowder.
right.
And she, honestly, it's a bad look what she did, because I think people are siding with Crowder over her, because I think the culture is kind of slowly but surely, gradually getting red pilled. Are there people like piling up, fucking defending Hilary? Sure, but first of all, she's a white woman, so strike one, you're probably evil. Second, two, you're fucking American. Strike two, and then three, like, dude. I don't care what. Listen, I don't care what anybody says. Her releasing that private footage is a dirt move, and based upon Steven Crowder's behavior in that video, I am led to believe he is also a bad judgment of female character.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and so he
for sure.
Probably didn't choose a good one.
Right. And so a couple of things I want to make the point. What guys will wonder, because there's a lot of people who are, in my opinion, not stupid, right? Who, they're not necessarily dumb, but men and a lot of women but men too are kind of piling against him when they watch this video. That's their first reaction. And in fact, my first reaction was pretty similar, not to pile against him in like the blue pill narrative way, but I immediately started looking at his behavior and how he was treating his woman and how that he was out of frame and how he could, do that differently. Like I immediately went into criticizing the guy in my head, like thinking about frame and thinking about, oh, this is a good example of what not to do, like all this stuff. That's a natural reaction, I think, for a lot of guys. But I'm, of course, we're more aware of what's going on out there in female nature. But guys who are not aware of sort of the female nature, they're going to fall to certain biological imperatives. One biological imperative is to protect the baby maker. So you'll notice, her being pregnant, how dare you talk to a pregnant woman like that, right? How dare you make a pregnant woman do anything? How dare you impose any boundaries or values or expectations on a pregnant woman, right? And it's a little bit silly when you think about it. It's not like she's in labor. It's not like he's, necessarily asked. They made this argument that it would be dangerous for her to touch the dog medication. I'm going to call bullshit on that. All right. It's not just about dog medication. This is a broader argument about her lack of conscientiousness. And it's like, how dare you have any expectations for this woman because she's pregnant, right? And the reason that happens is because we do have a natural tendency as men and women in general to want to protect women, protect children, and protect pregnant women and protect the baby maker. So we see that, what appears to be a woman under attack who's pregnant, normal, smart people may react and go, oh man, what a piece of crap this guy is, right? And not look further into her behavior or the dynamic. And then there's the other part of like, all right, we want to ostracize two weaker males. That's a natural thing because they're bad for the gene pool. So when we see a guy acting a little bit whiny, not being able to control his woman, some of those things, it sends a cringe reaction to us. And we want to sort of be like, this guy's a douchebag. He's a loser. He's abusive or whatever narrative we want to say, get him out of here. Right. That's a natural reaction to want to ostracize that baby maker, And so, those are two reactions that we have in the, our natural biological reactions, but that doesn't make this abuse. And I want to talk about these things. Some of you guys who might be watching and who are like, I think that he was abusive and I don't think that she was that bad. Like you're still on that side of it. I want you to recognize that there is some things happening in your firmware to cause you to want to think like that. So let's try to use our frontal lobes and not our chimpanzee brains and try to decipher some of this. Now, I'm going to show a couple other clips because I want you to notice some things about body language. All right. Well, first, let's I'm going to go back into the original clip if I can maneuver around on it. All right. I'm going to share that screen a little bit. Okay. So we see her in the screen share here. We see her standing. Oops. That was not what I wanted to do. That's what I want to do. So look at how she is standing here. All right. So this is not the stance of a victimized woman necessarily. All right.
Yeah.
And this is not chest out, in other parts of this, you'll notice her head is up, kind of like and look at fist clench. She wants to punch him in his face. Now, I don't blame her if she's having an argument and maybe she's been mad at him for a while. I get it. She wants to punch him in the face. Okay, got it. This is not an abused woman. All right. Based on her body language, and I had some body language experts, interestingly, try to make claims otherwise. And I find that interesting because anyone who looks at the body language from a standpoint of expertise can tell you the wide stance, the squared off stuff even when so she, at one point, she's more or less in a combative, posture here. And we'll talk now. He's
It's kind of like a pump. It's like almost a prideful stance, if you will, because
very much so. Yeah.
and I think it's because she knows it's being recorded, and she's just like, "Oh yeah, motherfucker, yeah," and then she's putting on her show. That's what I personally believe.
Right. Now you got other areas where she's now does appear to get upset, where she slouches here, so she goes from more of a combative to defeated, more upset about the scenario, but this could be the playing to the camera.
Yeah,
Right.
I was about to say the same thing because she stood right in front of the camera. Because, like, again, she is the one who sent it to this fucking guy. Like, so it's not like you don't just think like, oh, wait a minute,
Mhm.
maybe I have some footage of the abuse. Because if
Right.
this was an ongoing thing, why is this the only segment that's been released? Why isn't there? This is in 2021.
Yes. Not to mention, they mentioned on Fresh and Fit, they paid attention. They were smart. They paid attention to the fact that like a minute or so of this was clipped out of it. So
Yeah, I think they said something that was kind of debunked though. They were said it was something along the
okay.
lines of like the camera turns off, like it's a Ring camera and it's sensor based or something along
Oh
those
yeah.
lines.
Okay. No. All right. That makes sense then.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that was just something worth mentioning. But now you notice she went from a combative to now she gets like, oh, I'm sad, when she's going to say something sad. And then she gets into this is somebody who's trying to reason and explain, like she is, not this victimized, I'm trying to cover and protect myself from being harmed by this abusive man. Okay. That's not what you see here. What you see is her really trying to be the logic and the reason, like, listen, you need to calm down. Your abuse is sick. You know what I mean? And she's got her hands out like this. She's like really making a point, and she's being the person who is, the voice of reason in his, illogical tirade. That's not that it's an illogical tirade at all, but I'm just saying that's what the body language is showing, and so it not once in this clip do you see, her, and like this right here, this is her de-escalating when he gets into a little bit more aggressive posture. She's now in a de-escalated, like, I'm not doing this with you, I'm leaving, you know what I mean? Very sort of indignant. All right. And so that important to note here, because when you look at the body language now of him, right, this is an arrogant, lean back, crossed. He won't even look at her half the time, and that's an indication of arrogance as he logically debunks her. Okay, in his mind, that's what he's doing, right? He's giving him the logical argument. He's doing what he does in his show. You know what I mean? It's what is it? Change my mind, right? And he's going to debate everybody. He's in a very arrogant sort of posture, but again, not aggressive necessarily or abusive. You know what I mean? He doesn't start to get a little bit more, I wouldn't say aggressive, but kind of where he's really frustrated till after he stands up, because he's lost control at this point. She is grabbing keys and then she leaves, and that's what ends up happening. And so she ends up going, she ends up leaving the scenario.
Right.
And
Which
so
is not okay.
right. And so what you have here, two things I want you guys to notice when you break down their body language. One is that she is in control the entire time. And I'm going to show you guys some abusive videos, actually, so it'll be trigger warning on those to show the difference here. All right. Yeah. Trigger. but they are hard to watch, some of the abusive ones. Her posture is basically, I want to punch this dude in the face. She's got her head up a lot of the times. She's squared off, chest puffed out, fist clenched. And then at other parts, like when he starts to get a little elevated, and she'll do this. Okay, calm down. I'm the voice of reason now. It's like she's elevating him and then saying, all right, now you're out of control. You calm down. And that's really being in control and actually orchestrating this entire thing. Okay. He's very condescending and very arrogant. So that's his posture. That's what he's doing. but he is being controlled here. He doesn't even know it, is what I'm going to
Let,
say.
I just looked up some data too on that Ring recorder.
Mhm.
So the default storage time in the Ring camera that they're using is 60 days,
Yeah.
but you can jack it up to 180 days.
Right.
So even if you fast forward that to, I'm sorry, that footage is 2021. So there's, yeah, so what are you doing? Like, what do you like, you know, I don't know. After, you ever seen the movie Gone Girl?
Yeah. Mhm. Yep. Right.
That inspired a lot of evil bitches, bro.
Well, we'll talk about too deeper her, deeper manipulation tactics, but I want to make the point about abuse here. I'm going to show some other video clips now. So notice again, her body language and control. He was very arrogant. Like some people have made the claim he's a narcissist. Well, the arrogant body language would go with that. You know what I mean? Now, I'm not saying he is, again, can't clinically diagnose him from a 3-minute video, but yeah, he's like pretty arrogant until he realizes that she is going to take the keys and go regardless of what he says. He's lost power and control. So he gets a little bit more erratic and panicky in his voice and everything like that. But none of these things are out of control, abusive, yelling, screaming, where he's a danger. See, abusive is assuming he's a physical danger to the other person. That's kind of what we would think in terms of abuse, not just somebody who's arguing and maybe using some toxic patterns in an argument. So let's I want to show a couple. This is all right. Serious trigger warning. All right, because I'm going to show actual abusive scenarios, and there's going to be some physical abuse here. And I want you to notice the female body language, what a female is going to do when she's literally afraid of somebody and afraid that they're being abused. I tried to find arguments where a woman would show that, but what's interesting is I have a lot of women instigating arguments and yelling that I could find. I'm sure there's some out there that would show what I want, but it was difficult to find just an argument where they were showing, I know it's out there. It's just that, it's a lot of it was too like these staged things too, and I don't want to do too many of the stage things, but let's look at some actual stuff here. So I'm going to share the screen again. Let's go into spousal abuse. That's one I'll do. All right. So I'm just going to show a little bit of this. So I want you to notice this girl's body language. It's kind of, again, disturbing to watch.
Toward the end of the tape, Ulner explodes in violence.
You're sorry you wouldn't come up here. Wouldn't do that.
Right. Notice she's got her arms up. She's protecting herself. She's closing herself off.
What does the son do? And what about
all right, obviously crying, protecting herself. There's a physical element here, right? Of course.
Follow what I say to the T.
And he's aggressing and pushing her around, grabbing her. Look, see how that is an abuse. This is what an abused woman looks like. This is what abuse looks like. Okay, not the cartoon of abuse that the Daily Wire wants to claim. Like, look at her hands, how she's putting her hands up. You know what I mean? She's trying to cut. She's not just trying to protect herself from being hit, but she's literally afraid. She's putting herself in a ball. Now, I don't expect that to be the case. Putting herself in a ball like that in the middle of an argument, but a scared woman would demonstrate, and I'll show you another clip. And this one is staged, but she does the body language. So I just want to show it real quick. But, you're noticing a big difference between that type of body language. Where the hell is it? Yes, man.
Right.
And what his wife was doing, right?
And how I would feel. You just come out here and you're going to be like showing off to all the other guys. Look at me when I'm talking to you.
Looking down.
You didn't think for 1 second how I felt.
She's not.
No, you don't care about me at all, do you? You just want to show off,
right?
Like look at this outfit. You call that an outfit?
Sorry. Crossing.
Oh, sorry. Like that makes everything better.
Brings the voice down. Like there's a lot of things that she's not. Her chin is down, not up. She's in a protective posture, right?
Yeah.
And that is way different. Way different. When someone's being, that's what somebody who's even guy or girl, that's what abuse looks more like. Okay. not so much what Crowder's wife was doing. I'll show one more example here. Let me find it there. So we'll go with one more of these. Yeah. So this one is again very disturbing to watch this stuff, right? Got the warning, all right, but we're gonna watch. This is the Zach Stacy thing, and I want you to notice in the beginning before he starts beating her up. Okay, so I'm gonna pause. All right, so pausing here. Look, her hands are kind of up, like she's talking to him. She's afraid to face him. That's another thing you'll notice. People who are scared and actual abuse victims, they'll flinch away from their abuser, in these fights. They'll walk away. They'll be kind of unsettled, and they might need to pace around a little bit, which was what she's doing. And they'll show their shoulder or even their back to them because they're afraid. You know what I mean? You look at the tilt of her head, she's looking downward. You know what I'm saying? She's in an argument with, what was her husband? I think at the time, her ex-girlfriend, baby daddy situation anyway. And of course, I hate to show the rest, but he's
way different now.
She's there you go. And she just like it starts going at it. Now she's protecting herself. All right. This is terrible. This is a terrible clip to watch. We don't even need to watch the whole thing. I hate it. I hate watching that, because that to me, that is what abuse looks like.
Yeah.
That's abuse. All right.
Yeah.
Candace Owens.
Candace
all right.
Internet. Candace Owens needs to shut up, bro. She needs to shut the fuck up. It's so terrible because it's not abuse, but like American women. Look, dude, here's the real reality of American women. Because you see these fucking retards on Fresh and Fit. You see these retards on the whatever podcast. You see these retards on the Just Pearly things. And all they're calling is for men to keep changing. Men need to change. Men need to change. Men need to change. Men are the problem. Men are the problem. Mm-hmm. And take no accountability, taking no action whatsoever to make any kind of change. And you ever see that episode of Fresh and Prince when he says, like, what is this family's motto? When in doubt, blame Will. That's what America does with American men. When in doubt, blame men. Right. And it kind of it's ridiculous to this point. Like, because I know some people, they're like, no matter what, it's men's fault for this shit. And no, I'm sorry, not. Like, when you have government propaganda, music propaganda, movie propaganda, television propaganda, social media propaganda, video game propaganda, cartoon propaganda, education propaganda, constantly saying women are these perfect, flawless beings that can do whatever they want, and men are just these incompetent fools that we are just tolerating right now to keep this society going. What the fuck are you expecting to happen?
Right. Well, and I'm glad a lot of people are waking up to this. I'm noticing that, there's more narratives out there than there were, 5 years ago, saying things to the effect of what we're saying. But what we're saying is still counterculture. It's still not considered mainstream. And I'm not asking that, people crap all over women either, but we need to take a balanced view. And right now it is definitely crap on the men and not a balanced view here of what's going on. And unfortunately it is cultural, and it starts in the United States, you know what I mean? And it's filtered into other westernized areas of the world. It's painful to be a part of and watch. Now I want to mention, so let's break down actually what's happening in this argument, because I think when we break that down too, people will see also that, okay, this is like not just this dude being aggressive, abusive, and being a toxic a-hole here, and she's a submissive woman. There's a lot going on here. And not only that, is I want guys to recognize what's going on with the manipulation, because this is what happens to a lot of men in their relationships, and they can't understand why that's happening, or what's going on, because they don't have the frame, and they don't understand the tactics. Women are inherently more skilled socially than men are, like inherently, based on their brain structures. And this goes back to evolution again. We're good at, getting resources and going out and being goal oriented. So a lot of our social interactions are goal oriented, whereas women are good at having, social interactions for the sake of, having that social exchange, and they're more socially maneuverable because while the guy was out protecting or getting resources, they were back at a camp, more or less, combining resources from their neighbors. And so women are more collaborative. Sometimes there's a lot of good things about that, but that also means, being that they're physically usually less capable than the guys, their default mechanism for gaining power is going to be manipulation, right? And so they are going to be able and capable of several steps ahead of most guys when it comes to manipulation, or even the experts will watch something like this and, in my opinion, get it wrong. Right. So one thing I want to mention too is the topic of gaslighting, because I heard this now from two people that I respect, that put out content, different things, behavioral expert, and I won't mention their names because I'm about to criticize the opinion. I don't know if they want their names mentioned, but behavioral expert, a psychology guy, it mentioned gaslighting, that Steven Crowder was the one gaslighting.
Mm-hmm.
So let's break down, first of all, what is gaslighting? Gaslighting is when a gaslighter, the perpetrator, persistently distorts the reality and puts forth a false narrative, while the gaslighted or victim struggles to maintain their autonomy. And basically, the victim of gaslighting feels like their reality is being sort of, that their reality isn't their reality. You know what I mean? And so the argument of gaslighting that was made by these that's kind of being prevailing narrative is that he's saying that, she's not a good wife because she won't complete her wifely duties. And that's gaslighting, because, and then also they're saying that, he says he's setting a boundary by restricting her movement, not letting her take the car because she won't do what he asked. And he said that that's gaslighting because that's not really, putting forth a boundary. Well, my argument on that is people think it's gaslighting because they don't think that a wife or a woman should have any duties or any standards expressed to her by a man, that she should only do what she feels like doing. Her definition of being a good woman, good wife, is based on her feelings and her idea what's right and wrong alone. And she's the decider. She does what she wants. And the guy is not allowed to impose or express a standard or condition that what he expects out of the relationship. She can express all day what she expects out of a husband, but the wife is not allowed to, or the wife is allowed to express what she wants of the husband, but the husband is not allowed to express what he would want out of a woman, and to define what, in his opinion, is a good or bad wife. So to these content creators, the fact that he has an expectation and that those aren't being met, therefore she's not a good wife, well, that would be an untrue statement, because you're not allowed to do kind of standards on women, right?
No,
Can't
how
do
dare you?
standards on a woman. So if you can't do those standards on a woman, then that would be gaslighting, because that's then inherently untrue. What makes her a good wife has nothing to do with these standards. That's the brain. They don't even see it. Like, these are smart people, and they don't see how that cultural narrative skewed their opinion.
Yeah.
No,
it goes back to America and how things are viewed in the West. It's just like, why, like, the onus is always on the man. You've got to do better. He's got to do better. He's got to lower the tone of his voice. He doesn't need to do that. They don't, like, what happened prior to this conversation?
Right.
What
How
happened
many
the day
arguments have
before?
they had about conscientiousness before, right? We don't know.
Exactly. And again, look, the proof is in the pudding, right? Because you know what the media love? They love a good victim story. They love a big, terrible, bad guy beating up some girl, right? That's why the media crucified Johnny Depp, and they were fucking wrong. This bitch shat in this man's bed.
Right.
and went in public and lied,
Mhm.
cried, lied, rallied at feminist march, was celebrated as a hero, was put into movies, made millions of dollars. She cupped the entire fucking world.
Yep.
But
We didn't learn
technology
that lesson.
Technology's catching up with these bitches, bro. Technology is catching up with these bitches. Men will triumph once again because we are the creators and inventors of technology. And I tell you what, this whole situation right now with this chick, I think, because the thing is, women, they have it on such easy mode in the States, right? That they really
Mhm.
don't need to be too smart and too clever with their lies and manipulation, because quite frankly, they don't need to be. They know that people will rally behind them. A pregnant woman sitting there chatting. And let me ask you this too. Did you notice that when she was talking at one point, she like held her stomach? She's like, oh, like
Mhm.
trying to emphasize that she was pregnant.
Mhm.
Um, is that like a normal body language? That doesn't like how often do you see a woman in a conversation, you know, just touching her belly and holding her stomach to try
Yeah.
to make it look like she's pregnant, like emphasizing the
Right.
fact that she's
Her
pregnant.
and not maybe it was hot out or whatever, but like her, her shirt was up and she's like just has her belly out, right? And she's like as she's squaring off having this conversation, maybe it was habitual. I don't have a baseline. So when we do, body language, as
Yeah.
we get a baseline of behavior, first, and that's how we can determine with percentages of probability. So all of these corporate trainers on body language who want to guarantee you being able to read people's mind through their body language, it's all bullshit. FYI. All right. You can get very skilled at reading people, however, but it's
Hmm.
when you look for clusters of behavior and we get a baseline of behavior. So I'd have to watch her behavior as a pregnant woman longer to see what her baselines are, to see if that meant anything or if that was just a habit. Nothing, because I mean, obviously my training was more towards like interrogations. How often am I interrogating or going to be in a battlefield scenario or observing somebody in a intelligence collecting scenario where it's a pregnant woman, like it's 9 months pregnant, 8 months pregnant, like not very often. So I'm not really sure. Like I'd have to check my resources on it if there's something meaningful about that. But it's a good point. I mean, maybe it's just sort of like it's almost like exposing to the camera. And we got to keep in mind that she knows I believe she knows she was being filmed because
Yeah.
this was saved and this was released. It was
Yeah.
weaponized by her.
Yeah.
And so, and people will say, well, she filed for divorce because the excuse was, well, she found out he was talking to a divorce attorney. But here's the thing. We advise men when the relationships have gone south and the frame is lost to talk to a divorce attorney, whether or not you execute a divorce or not, because you need to know what your rights are and what your limitations are, what this thing looks like. And that women will do that. The women, when they will talk to a divorce attorney behind the guy's back. That's normal. That's par for the course. And so when a woman feels like it's not working out, she doesn't announce, I'm going to an attorney and I'm fine, or whatever. That's pretty rare that happens. She will do her due diligence on the back end, even if she is equal income earner or the primary income earner. She will do her diligence on the back end and make sure her ducks are in a row before she says, okay, and you know what? I don't blame her, actually. That's what anybody should do, guy or girl. If you think your relationship's going south, you need to do some due diligence on your end to know what that exit's going to look like. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But we shame men for doing it, right? Because that was the big thing. Like, he went and talked to a divorce attorney, so then she filed. Like, okay, like, so what though? How'd she file? By herself? Did she do it? Did she write it on birch bark and mail it to the courthouse? No, she had a fucking attorney help her file. So it's like they're both talking to attorneys, but the narrative gets pushed forth in such a way that it makes the dude look bad. And that's the interesting thing here. So the thing about this is not gaslighting. Okay. I'm in a disagreement with the people who have made that claim. The reason why we can't, I'll say at least this much, we can't say that it's gaslighting, even though it could be. And the reason why is because gaslighting assumes that we know the truth. So it's possible that, he is basically moving the goalpost as to his expectations and standards in the relationship to constantly devalue her and make her out to be a bad wife. If that was the case, yes, then this could be gaslighting. But also, she could be constantly using passive aggressiveness and a lack of compliance to agreed upon tasks and duties in order to manipulate him to make him look like the bad guy and then to make him paint him out to be an abuser, right? To ignite his anger and then come down on him for getting angry. And I'll talk about that tactic in a minute. It's called emotional baiting. And so she's doing emotional baiting, which she clearly is, but if it's to a degree where it's to devalue him, maybe she's the narcissistic abuser. And see, the reality is we don't know who's who in this. It's just an argument where two people are trying to gain power over each other, right? And so, but there's been experts, like I say, that are assuming that she, is being gaslit because he has an expectation and he's not allowed to have that as a husband, according to our current social narrative. So what's actually happening here is a disagreement. This is what a disagreement looks like with two people who have poor communication skills in a relationship. That is what this is, nothing more, nothing less, from what we can tell from a 3-minute clip. He has a standard for what his relationship should look like and what it would mean to be a good wife, right? And she has another standard, all right, of what she thinks that should look like. And they're not meeting eye to eye or discussing that topic. They're instead using tactics to try to have power over the other person. And they're both doing it. He feels her lack of conscientiousness and lack of compliance when he asks her to do something, given that he's the husband and the breadwinner, is disrespectful. Multi-millionaire breadwinner, I should mention, right? And she's a stay-at-home wife, right? Should mention that, or was. And so I think she probably is having a lack of conscientiousness, and her lack of compliance is disrespectful by my standards. Of course, someone else might have different standards in their relationship. But I would also agree, though, to the other side of it, that, he is using contempt and coercion, and he is also being toxic and disrespectful here. We can break that down, too. So it's not he's not a monster and she's an angel. She's not this horrible narcissistic woman that I know of either. And he's this victim. I don't think there's any victims in this, probably. I think it's two people who are not good with relationships and are trying to have power over each other. So, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
I just want to add something into that. Again, I think we just really need to understand, too. Yeah, sure. Are there people out there that always have these perfect, non-toxic communication relationship? I mean, the answer is no. I don't think so. I don't think so. Are you telling me that every relationship never has any toxicity, even the good long ones?
Right. Yeah, that's a that would be a missed expectation there. I think everybody
No,
can fall into this. Yeah.
I really want to know, honestly, are there relationships out there where these people just have no turmoil, no moments of toxicity? Dude, life is hard, then you die forever. That's a pretty fucking goddamn heavy thing to tolerate there.
Right.
It's a shaky road.
Yeah.
And so, again, this is why and this is why you keep your fucking relationship private.
Yeah.
And she broke a cardinal rule here. She's not
Right.
some fucking victim. He's not feeding her haymakers.
No.
The dude is 35 years old and he's worth $20 million. That woman is spoiled up and down for fucking generations to come, especially after this divorce, which she's going to go after the assets. Of course she is, because she's an American woman.
Mm-hmm.
And another thing is this, too.
$10 million richer. Doesn't sound very abusive to me.
And another thing is this, too, right? A lot of these, I'm sorry, but the marriage contracts in America, they incentivize bad female behavior.
Yes, they do.
And they incentivize, dude, they incentivize these women to plan, manipulate, and abuse this archaic, retarded, divorce and child support system in America that is the foundation of destroying our families. And it's women weaponizing the system against men because they're fucking spiteful. That's the reality. And if people are going to say misogynist, yada yada, you know what people are calling us misogynists? The marketers, the companies that want to target these women and financially extort them, the governments that want them for votes only. That's the reality. And people are fucking waking up to this shit.
Right,
And
which
honestly,
is good because it's not good for women either. You know, it's is not a hail all men and screw the women scenario. When women can recognize when behavior isn't good either on the female side, and they have models of what good behavior does look like, and guys have models of what good behavior does look like, then we can have healthy relationships. You can start beginning to have a conversation about that, you know, and
yep,
things like forgiveness and gratitude need to be present in relationships because people screw up. You know,
yeah.
nobody is immune to falling into a toxic pattern if they get upset enough. Nobody is. Now, that doesn't mean to excuse it. I'm actually, before the show's over, I'll give an actionable model so that we can avoid having these kinds of toxic arguments in your relationships. But that said, you know, screw ups happen, and that doesn't mean that you don't care about or love your partner. What women screw up and men screw up. It's as long as we get back on track, take accountability for the screw up, and then, you know, come back to some healthy communication, it's fine. But there's a lack of gratitude or a lack of forgiveness nowadays amongst
And I
people
want
in
to,
relationships.
and I definitely want to say this too. Okay, these women like Amber Heard, these women right now like Hilary Carter. Okay, let's just say she is completely innocent. Okay, releasing those videos was a dirty move. I don't care what
100%.
anybody fucking says. That's a dirt move because your husband is a public figure
Yeah.
and you're going to go ahead and tarnish his brand, tarnish his reputation. That hurts him the most because
Mm-hmm.
it comes from this woman. That's how you know this bitch is evil.
Yep.
You know, to be
The father of her
that,
kids. Right. The father of her
the
kids.
father, doesn't matter. Drag him through the public shame of this.
Right.
And the thing is this, though. Here's the good news. When these treacherous bitches think short term and they pull this fucking shit to get a short term victory like Amber Heard did. She
Mm-hmm.
was, dude, I don't know if you remember it. She was posting on her Instagram at these feminist rallies. She was smiling. She's like, I'm a victim and I'm going to stand up for
Oh,
domestic.
yeah.
And millions of these fat morons just clapping her on, right?
Right.
Now look at the trial. Busted.
Mm-hmm.
Shit in this man's bed. That's how crazy she is. And guess what? That trial permanently red pilled the world. See, the thing that these women don't realize is for their short term victories that they're trying to get, all they're doing is permanently red pilling more and more dudes. And
Yeah.
this is compounding. This is going to catch up. And dude, we're going to take this shit back because now we've got to this point that the only weapon left that they have are two. One was what they're using right now, censorship. Elon Musk clearly revealed that on Twitter. They are
Mm-hmm.
censoring people nonstop. They were shadow banning people. They were shadow banning people in the algorithm. They're shadow banning my channel. They're shadow banning your channel.
Oh, yeah.
They're shadow banning us. If this was the transgender fucking hour, we'd have like 1 million goddamn views.
I know, right? I know.
Okay.
Yep.
But no, we're actually educating men, and they don't want to fucking teach the slaves how to read. That's how
Yep.
they view men. And the only second other option they have is the only way you can unred pill someone, which is by killing them. And
Yeah.
they haven't gotten to that point yet. But I will say that I think that they're getting increasingly desperate because we're gaining some serious traction.
Oh, yeah.
Some serious traction. And Rumble's on the up and up too, as well. So you
Right.
have Twitter, which is now censorship free, solid platform, no shadow banning. You have Rumble, and TikTok's on board with the censorship because China. But we're to quote Hilary Crowder, we're at this impasse right now.
Right.
But I think despite the censorship, men will be men, and they will find a way around this, and we already are. And if YouTube doesn't get their fucking shit together, if Facebook, if Instagram doesn't get the shit together, guess what? that'll just become just like Facebook. Facebook is drowning in irrelevancy. Instagram's heading that way because of all the censorship. You know, the algorithm in TikTok, you know why it's so favorable? Because it pushes people organically to the top. It has organic discovery. Same thing with Rumble.
They're pretty
YouTube, all these
censorship
other things.
motivated too, though, eh? TikTok.
Sure, but the reason why TikTok got to the top was called it was based upon organic discovery, right?
Okay.
See, in YouTube, we only get our notifications pushed out to a percentage of our fans based upon how many likes and how many live viewers are there. And if that number incrementally increases, then they'll alert more of our subscribers, right?
Right, which means you guys got to like my show right now, guys. FYI.
Yes.
Because
Click the
that's the
like
only way to
button,
get out of my shadow banning. At
hit the
least
subscribe button, send $100 super chat right now.
Yeah,
Um,
do that too.
And then with the thing with TikTok that got it to prevalency, and that's how Andrew Tate manipulated the system and won to his advantage.
Right.
He just had a bunch of his stuff copy pasted. He gave instructions to the kids. They copy pasted it and recycled it, and he got to the top of every algorithm
I know,
because
he defeated the algorithms and they canceled them. That's how you know. Like whether someone in my audience likes Andrew Tate or not, you know what I mean? It's the guy knew what he was doing, and with those algorithms, and it resulted in him getting mass canceled by large corporations. And so, you know, think about it, it's not about him.
That's the only way they could beat him.
That's the only way they could beat him, right?
To
Exactly.
censor him.
Yep.
They had to censor him.
So that should tell you something about corporate censorship and where we're at right now. It's definitely a thing, and our voices are not free on these platforms. They're really not. They have to have the appearance of freedom, or else there'll be revolts and all those things. They get our participation, and they get the masses to participate and fall into a social narrative because because they have the appearance of freedom. But the reality is it's not free at all. We because of the need for the appearance of freedom, we at least have a space to talk. If it wasn't for that, it'd be total draconian. We'd have to be completely underground, unfortunately. But and guys wonder why that social narrative. It's not this conspiracy theory at all. It's just you got to follow the money. You know, it's more economically advantageous to keep families apart now, and to keep people divorcing, to keep people unstable, because unstable people buy more shit. And that's the reality. Unstable people consume more, buy more shit, and put themselves in the debt and work to try to get out of it. It's they're easier enslaved, and it filters that money into large pockets, and that's why. So if anyone wants to know why, that's why. It's just the way of the world, man. It's not a conspiracy.
Yep.
So anyways,
And
analyzing
then, I just want to say too, like, you know, women, we talk about unstable. I mean, women are the ones that blow the most money. They have the most credit card debt. They have the most student loan debt.
That's why it's gynocentric. That's why that's promoted, because they are the primary spenders in the marketplace. So let's placate to women and not offend them so that they buy our stuff. You know what I mean? And it, hey, okay. So a little bit of, kind of, that's my wife, 1950s style, whatever, like, hey, she's the boss. Hey, whatever. Okay, whatever. Not too damaging. But now we're to a point where it's like, he's an abuser, right? Like what? Like, now we're at this point of extreme. It can't get any more extreme. So we're seeing the pushback now, more pushback from women, even, who are like, well, wait, hold on, because women are realizing how damaging it is to be placated to in this way. And to be lied to. They're not going to have good relationships. They're not going to turn around and all of a sudden have everything in life they'd want and be happy by following this narrative and by being the boss bitch and by enslaving a guy. That's not going to make them attracted, make them happy. They want to be protected. They want a guy who's a strong guy, who leads and who, has a good presence in the home. And this whole thing, the social narrative is not helping that to happen. Now back into so what's happening in this disagreement? Let's look at the toxic styles that's happening. So on his side, what he's doing is not gaslighting, but he is using cohesion. So cohesion is persuading or attempting to have power over someone through threats. Now those could be a threat to take away resources or a threat to take away violence. So, that's or to do violence or something like that. He's using the cohesion in his sort of, when he starts to lose control and starts to more or less not have an effect on his wife's behavior. He starts to get into, well, you're not taking the car, and you better watch it. You know what I mean? And an angry tone of voice, some of those things. That's him using coercion. Now, understand that as men, our default mechanism is not to out debate somebody. It's to use coercion and violence. All right. The chimpanzee brain that we have, not always good, right? Not necessarily the right answer, but the chimpanzee brain wants to, when we start to lose power and influence, we want to result to physical violence to get our power back, or we want to result to coercion. Reason why is because men were more physically powerful and men control the resources. And so, two men in a dispute, right? If they think if two men in a dispute, think they can win through coercion or violence, we have war now, right? We have trade agreements where we stop trading with somebody. That's coercion. You know what I mean? Where we're going to stop giving you resources that if you don't play by our rules, right? This is a male default mechanism. Not necessarily right or good, but this is something that happens when we lose the frame and when we feel like we're losing power. So, guys, you need to be aware of this. This is why it's important to maintain frame and to know what your leverage points and your power is in your relationship, so you don't get frustrated and have a perception of losing control and losing power, and then in an attempt to protect yourself, right, you fall in line to, you certainly don't want to fall in line to violence. You certainly don't want to fall in line with coercive behavior, right? Using body language, posture, voice, like yelling, name calling, forced threats. You don't want to get into that as a guy. It's natural to do it, though. We want to recognize it's a natural male thing to do. That doesn't mean that's the right thing to do, though, right? So you don't want to do that. But he does fall in line with that. That being said, though, he is pretty controlled. He is not somebody who is out of control angry here. He doesn't, he's not cursing her up and down. And, we've seen a lot worse, right? And so he is clearly angry and upset. And being angry and upset, does not constitute labeling him as being out of control, because he certainly isn't here. He didn't take it that far. Now, another thing that's happening is contempt. Both him and her are having contempt for each other. So what contempt is seeing a person of less value or seeing them as worthless or less deserving and expressing that. Okay. So he's doing it by saying, you're not a good wife because you're not doing things to my standard. That's not a healthy thing to do in a relationship in terms of patterns. What should be focused on is, listen, like, there's a lot of things that I want you to do that you should be doing, in my opinion, as my wife, and you're not doing those things. We need to talk about what those things are, right? Focus on the things that your partner isn't doing and the things that are making you unhappy. Don't focus on labeling your partner as something of less value or worthlessness because they're not doing what you want. That's contemptuous behavior. That's what he's doing, and that's a toxic thing. But she's also doing it too. It's important to put out. It's just very subtle. When I get into her stuff with the stonewalling and the baiting, you'll see it a little bit more clearly, but she's painting him as an abuser, right? So that's terrible. Also contemptuous. It's like, you're doing it again. You're losing your temper and you're being abusive simply because she has a disagreement with him. And she doesn't think she should have to do what he asks. Instead of talking about the subject matter, which is, you want me to do A, B, and C, but I don't want to do A, B, and C. Let's talk about why that is, and let's have a discussion about that. She is instead seeing him as in a contemptuous way, as an abusive partner that she needs to get away from. See, that's her way of devaluing him. So they're both being contemptuous. All right. One thing that he's doing also is he's doing the no true Scotsman fallacy, which is, you're not a good wife because you're not more conscientious and more compliant, right? In other words, you're not a true wife or a good wife. Again, like her standard of what a good wife is probably different than his. Now, it's his that matters because he's the husband. So his standard is what is the default here. Just as like her standard for her to participate in the commitment for what a husband should bring to the table belongs to her, his standard belongs to him, right? They can impose those standards and say, well, this is a good relationship for me or not a good relationship for me, right? But to sit there and say, you know, an individual standards, what they think is a good wife or good husband is very subjective, right? And so like to sit there and say, well, you know, you're not truly this good person because of this. It's devaluing, and it's also really putting up a fallacy. Instead, the solution would be to talk about what it means to be a good partner, right? Let's talk about between you and I what you think, you know, what you think being a good partner to me is, what you think me being a good partner to you is, so we can meet the standards for each other, right? That should be where the discussion goes, not just saying, well, you're a shitty husband, you're a shitty wife because you don't do what I want. That's, you know, that's that fallacy. Now, some of the things that she's doing that is getting missed by the mainstream media is passive aggressiveness. So passive aggressiveness is attempting to have power over someone through non-compliance or displaying negative feelings through indirect communication and avoidance. So instead of, you know, saying, look, you want me to do this thing with the dogs, honey. I don't want to do the things with the dogs because of A, B, and C, and I'm running late. I need to go do this. Let's talk about that. She is avoiding that communication and going, well, you're being abusive again, Steve. I'm not going to do this. I love you. I'm committed to you. You're acting out of turn now, right? That's a passive aggressive stance because he has a concern and a problem he's trying to address. And she is ignoring that and just defaulting to, I love you. You're just out of control. That's passive aggressive.
She's devaluing his problem. She's
Correct.
just saying, and he says that because, like, you know, I was in a relationship with a crazy bitch one time, and she, you know, when she fucking, you know, she wouldn't stop lying. And she would just be like, oh yeah, but I do X, Y, and Z for you, like these physical acts of service. Like I do the laundry, I do this, I do that. I'm like, yeah, but you're still fucking lying. Like this doesn't erase what that. She's like, well, but you don't get, like, yeah, I may tell lies, but I do X, Y, and Z. I'm like, bitch, are you missing a chromosome? I am clearly letting you know that the bedrock of stability and everything in a relationship is trust. And the one thing that destroys trust are lies. So no matter what you fucking do, your lies are destroying this relationship. She's like, well, I don't think that's important because I do laundry. I'm like, okay, cool. So I'm just a fucking circus clown here.
Yeah.
And, you know, the only way to handle that is chuck a deuce, see you later.
Right. Well, and that's where, you know, it's part of the passive aggressiveness is stonewalling, not addressing the conversation or problem. Women can do this. Guys do it too, but women do this a lot when they're being passive aggressive. You have a concern, like you're like, let's talk about the lying. And she's like, I do the laundry. Like, you know, she's not willing, or how about this? Every guy's been in this situation. Well, what about that one time you were mean to me yesterday? Well, wait a second. We're talking about something totally different. I'm trying to address a concern. You're now talking about how you didn't like the way I talked to you yesterday or something, right? Like they want to shift the topic when accountability is on the line for themselves. That's a form of stonewalling. So stonewalling is refusing to communicate, and that shows up in a lot of different ways.
Super toxic,
right?
Super, especially when they block you, when they avoid text messages, when you're like, yo, we're like in the middle of a fucking conversation, or I'm angry right now. I'm clearly suffering emotionally on this end because you're not communicating clearly, and they just disappear and do whatever they want, which is peak arrogance. And yeah, I think a lot. I learned about this term stonewalling earlier this year, actually, and I heard how devastatingly toxic it can be
Oh yeah.
towards a relationship.
Yeah, it's one of the 4 horsemen, which are four predictors of a divorce or breakup, according to the Gottman Institute. But that's one thing I like out of that institute is that assessment. It's pretty well researched. And yeah, stonewalling is very, very damaging. It's just a refusal to communicate, and that shows up in many different ways. It could be ghosting or just not talking. It could be being passive aggressive, like she is, right? And it could be shifting the topic. It could also be talking over someone else and not letting them communicate or speak to you, and not actually listening to the other person. So there's stonewalling shows up in a lot of different ways. And in this case, she's not discussing the standards of what the duties are and expectations are for her and whether or not she's meeting them. Right. If she was doing that, if she was like, honey, I did A, B, and C yesterday, and right now I have to go to an appointment, and now you're saying I need to do this, but I told you, that I didn't, it's not something I want to be doing. Being, let's say there was a concern with the medication, being that I'm pregnant, or, she was having that discussion, I wouldn't be so hard on her, but that's not what she was doing. She was refusing to communicate and refusing to discuss what he was discussing. And instead she was repeating, I love you. I'm committed to you, as if to say, I'm a good person and I'm a good wife, and you're unreasonable for trying to have this discussion about my behavior, because of course I'm a good wife. So my behavior couldn't be worth discussing, you see? And that's the arrogance of that position and what she's doing. And then of course, leaving the argument, he wasn't throwing things, hitting, he wasn't and not that that's the only standard either, but he really didn't even get that assertive until towards the end of it. You know what I mean? Now, he's not a productive communicator at all. There's things he's doing, a lot of explaining and a lot of deering, and he's not doing too well. Right. And I already mentioned that the contemptuousness and some of the ways that he's kind of sort of digging at her versus this isn't good. And so we'll discuss an alternative, but she's definitely doing emotionally manipulative things. And then to the last major thing she's doing is emotional baiting. This is really common thing, and guys fall for it all the time, self included. It's like, because we tend not to do this. And a lot of times women are several steps ahead of us when it comes to arguments and comes to things. So what'll happen is a lot of times women who are emotionally baiting, what they'll do is they'll use action or inaction to elicit in a reaction from the guy. So they'll do something subtle that maybe nobody else would notice as being a problem, or they will refuse or won't do something, and she knows that that's going to elicit an emotional response from the other person. And then when that person reacts to that behavior, then she acts like, wait, what do you mean? You're acting out of line. You're acting angry. You're just you're getting angry at me. I'm not angry at you. You know what I mean? And that's the emotional baiting. And it's usually done, by the way, talk about gaslighting. It's done in a way to shame or gaslight the victim. A lot of times people who are doing this. So if she wants to paint him as an abuser, she can intentionally not do some of the things that, have non-compliance over some of the things that he would want, knowing that he would get upset because they've had this fight before about her lack of conscientiousness in the relationship. He would then blow up and, make it about wifely duties and, like losing his mind. And then she would go, wow, you see how you're talking to me? You see how toxic this is? You're just abusive, Steven. This is abusive. That is very manipulative. And it's pretty clear that that's what she is doing here, most likely, and so what we have is two people doing things that are not healthy in the real. They're both having toxic communication patterns that designed to try to have power over the other person and to try to take the frame. And the thing about this is she actually ends up having the frame. In my opinion, when you really look at it, she's the one. He thinks he's won because he's logically defeating her. But the two things: first of all, relationship isn't about beating your partner. It's about taking the lead as a man and supplying each other with each other's needs so you both win. It's not about winning the argument. He makes it about winning the argument, so then he loses the frame. He loses the frame because she has complete emotional control in this and logistical control as well, because she just leaves and drives off. Now, the narrative is that he like said, I'm going to F you up, and then she had to flee. Notice how that's not in camera. Number one. Number two, that is something that I'm going to say hard to believe. Not hard to believe they would say that, but hard to believe that that's exactly the way it went down. She had keys in hand and she was leaving. He may have yelled something out of because he lost frame, maybe lost self-control, said he's going to F you up, right? Maybe, as she walked out the door pretty much with the middle finger and got in the car and drove off. He's physically capable of grabbing those keys, physically stopping her from leaving. When they say she left, it wasn't her running down the street, asking the neighbors to call the police. That would be abusive by definition. She simply took the keys and left. Non-compliance. She wasn't under coercive control. He was angry and trying to use that in an argument, but he wasn't actually executing that level of control and that level of abuse. And so that's the breakdown really of this scenario and what we're looking at. We're looking at two people that are trying to have power over the other person. And so I'll get into in a second a better tactic and how to have frame in your relationship so that you don't find yourself in this position. But any thoughts before I move into that?
No. I mean, ultimately, I think a lot of guys, I think one thing that really has permanently red pilled me in my recent year is that, like, you guys have to stop having hope for people. Like in these relationships, no, like when you have the hope, like she can change. If I just do this, if I just make, if it just wasn't this, and you sit there and you rationalize and you bargain, and you have to understand some of these women that you get into relationships with or sleep with or whatever, some of these chicks are just damaged beyond repair.
And they don't want
And
to repair either.
they don't want to repair either. And
Yeah.
the thing you have to do is you have to realize that in your frame, if someone doesn't comply, you have to say goodbye. You have to get rid. There's no negotiation, because all you do is, by staying in that relationship, by staying in that, whether it be a romantic relationship, marriage, friendship, familial relationship, business relationship, if something does not align with your core values, it is going to chip away at your internal self-being, your confidence. It's going to erode away at you and kill you from the inside out. You have to stick up for yourself. You have to say no means no. And if they don't want to fucking do what needs to be done, you need to have the abundance mentality. As long as you're working on the core four, money, muscles, game, frame, know that you will be able to replace this person with someone better, because that's the reality of life. Because you have to let go of what you don't want in order so you can free your hands up to take what you do want. That's not some Disney bullshit. And I have stayed with women before who violated my values, and I could feel like I had lost a part of myself, and it was just eating away at you, and it's like a weevil in your brain, just eating away, chipping away, and eventually you lose yourself, and then you lose that person you're trying to hold on to anyways.
Right.
So you have to understand when it's done, when it's time to have fucking no more discussions and walk away, and you have to walk away. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. You're going to waste time, and eventually that thing's going to terminate anyways, and you're just going to waste time and be more fucked up at the end anyways.
Yeah, such good advice. And when that's such good advice, really, to start off what, some of the techniques and tactics I'm going to mention, because really Steven Crowder, I don't again, not to say he's perfect, right? But whatever. He obviously did a lot of things wrong here. But if he was healthy to begin with, which I'm not going to make that argument, okay, because I wouldn't probably, I'm not going to guess that he was. But if he did have healthy, mindset for his relationships to begin with, then he should have left her a lot sooner. That's the reality, because when you stick around, when somebody is demonstrating that they don't have your values and they're not interested in adopting your values, they maybe are not capable of living out your values and being the partner that you want, that is when it's time to go. And if you don't go, what you're going to find yourself in this frustrated scenario where you're banging your head against the wall, trying to get somebody to change. And this is what I see with his behavior, is that he is turned into this toxic version of himself, banging his head against the wall to try to get his wife to be the partner that he wants. Now, in a session with him, him and I would, if that were the case, him and I would explore if his standards and his expectations are reasonable or not, his trauma, what he's bringing to the table in terms of communication skills, leadership skills. These are all things he and I, or any of my clients would discuss to help them be better equipped with the tools. But that being, and I'm going to give you, the audience here tools today in that regards. But the reality is, though, if the woman is not demonstrating a willingness or a capability of being the partner that you want, right? You don't give it years and years hoping she'll change. All that does is put you in a place where you're slamming your head against the wall like this guy is in this situation. Yeah. You become the toxic person trying to change the other person.
Dude, exactly. You become the toxic person. And then here's the thing too. Look, remember I was talking to you about how eventually this is going to fucking blow up in your face, okay? I guarantee you, Steven, because he is already talking to divorce lawyer, right? I guarantee you there were multiple points where he was just like, man, I just know I gotta leave this bitch. But
right.
But somehow he got talked into it, or someone told him about Jesus or some shit that fucked his brain up. And he was just like, no, 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 I gotta fucking do this. I gotta stick it out. And it got to this point now where this bitch just fucking, a man who already has his back up against the wall.
Yeah.
In a public sense.
Mm-hmm.
His own wife put the fucking final knife in his back.
Yeah. And that's so critical given what he does for a living, mm-hmm. And so she's going to walk. I mean, so people who want to sit here and act like she's not, like she's the victim in this, she's going to walk away with at least $10 million custody and alimony. If his net worth is worth 10 million, she will walk away with at least half of that money. She will walk away with a payment plan for her future. If they're in California, which they may be, I'm not 100%.
Texas.
Okay. Well, thankfully they're in Texas, but there are alimony laws, and I'm sure he'll have to pay some of that, right? To she's not working, so it'll at least 5 years of alimony to her lifestyle while she walks away with $10 million and custody. So now you have to have a custody arrangement with the kids. There will be child support involved, and who gets the house? Well, she might, or that'll be worked out. But she walks away with quite a lot. And on her way out, she throws a hand grenade into the dude's career to try to destroy the husband, not just the ex-husband, but the father of her children and the person that she is pilfering resources from, taking resources from. She doesn't get my respect in this. I'm sorry. She's not a victim. All right. If this was going on and it became public or whatever, that he was this abusive partner and she was trying to struggle through it, maybe, but that's not what's happening. She released this video. This is very strategic. You know what I mean? She is strategically trying to throw a hand grenade into the building behind her as she slow walks away from the explosion with $10 million in her hands. That's what she's doing. And I'm sorry, I can't get behind that. You know what I mean?
Did you see the response to the leaked video?
What's that?
Did you see Steven Crowder's response to the leaked video?
No.
No,
I don't know.
apparently put it out 3 days ago. I'm pulling it up right now.
Oh yeah. You want to pull it up and share it? That'd be cool.
We can
But
do a live reaction right now.
yeah. Well, we will talk about too, like, so what are, again, keep in mind that she has to demonstrate that she's capable of change and that she's willingness to change in order to want to be a good partner to you. And, you know, you may find yourself having to change some things about you too, to be a good partner to her. Like we're not all perfect, but if that other person isn't showing that willingness, you know, this is where you end up. You end up in a scenario where you're pretty much helpless and you've lost frame and you're resorting to logical arguments and cohesion and toxic patterns, you know, and beating your head up against the wall over somebody. So here's some, you know, while you're looking that up and stuff, I'll start into, here's some actionable skills. And here's how I want you guys to handle your conflicts, because you're going to have conflicts with girls you're dating. You're going to have conflicts in relationships. You cannot resort to cohesion and violence like your monkey brain wants to tell you how to do, right? And there's no reason to, because you have the frame as the man. Your loss of control is only a perception most of the time, right? It's only how you perceive the situation in yourself. And if you are also smart enough in how you handle your life and yourself, you're not going to put yourself in a situation where you're victimized, you know, to the degree of $10 million when your partner walks away from you. Okay. So these are things even guys who do want to get married and follow that paradigm are doing it in states where the laws are not so draconian, and they're also doing prenuptials and things like that. So that it's fair, you know what I mean? But that being said, you know, assuming that the girl you're dealing with is capable of being a good partner, there's a way to communicate during a conflict, and it is not this. So you don't want to fall into deering, which is, you know, in this case, he's explaining, right? You know, he's trying to explain and he's actually showing contempt, and he's trying to show her how she's logically at fault here, right? And
I
so
found I just found the video.
Oh, you did? Okay. So
Yep.
we'll take a pause on that and go ahead and share when you can. But yeah,
Okay.
so during his defense, defense, excuse, explain, and rationalize. So that's never what you want to do with a woman, because this is an emotional exchange that you're in. And so that'll be ineffective. So we'll share this. Let's look at Crowder's response.
It's just a quick 1-minute response. Here we go.
Yeah.
I commented on my ongoing divorce on Tuesday, requesting privacy in the best interest of the family, but also by court order agreed upon by all parties. Look, broken marriages are ugly, and in them people do ugly things. Myself, of course, included. I would never claim otherwise. However, due to recent misleadingly edited leaks to the tabloid press without context and not subject to consequences of the court, well, if not privacy, the next best option is truth. So today, I have filed a motion to officially unseal all files as they relate to the matter of legal record, finances, relevant medical records, including mental health history or evaluations, depositions, and any motions or sanctions from the courts of Texas. I will not be leaking private marital information to the press, but if the privacy agreements are not respected by all parties, I will address all that is a matter of irrefutable legal record in full context next week.
So that's that.
Yep. And so, you know, and that being said, now he's defending his position by, you know, releasing stuff. So now she put him in a position where he has to now sort of defame her, right? In order to try to gain some reputation back, which is not going to work well, by the way. He's not going to gain his reputation back. He's doing exactly the thing that he tried to do with his wife, which is to logic and reason his way out of this and make a debate and make an argument like he does for his show. That's not going to work. People think emotionally, and in a relationship, it's an emotional exchange. So even if you are right in your argument, you're not going to beat your wife down with words and then walk away successful. It's not going to make her emotionally interested in working out problems with you. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, the public is not going to listen to the details of his logical argument. It may turn out that he's 100% correct, which I doubt. I think they're probably both toxic, but it could come out that he's 100% correct. Nobody's going to care to listen to it. He would have been better, in my opinion, just saying, I'm sorry that, she came out with that kind of a clip. It's taken out of context. We've had a lot of arguments and fights. They've gotten ugly, and I'm not going to defame her, talk badly about her. If that's what she chooses to do, that's on her. I'm just happy that we're going to go our separate ways, and it's, a broken relationship. And I just hope that we can work things out for the kids. If that was his stance, people would be like, oh, well, wow. Okay. You know what I mean? And so I think like people would respect and handle that better by him taking the high road in this case. That's just my opinion. Because people just don't care about the logic. They want the emotions. They want the feels. You know what I mean? Unfortunately. So in the argument though, in the conflict, what do you do? And so I have an acronym called L.U.C.A. So L.U.C.A stands for listen. So as a man, basically when there's a problem, if you have the problem and you want to address it, ask it in the form of a question. Like, for example, he could have gone, hey babe, I thought you were going to take care of the dogs before you leave. Are you going to do that? And she's like, well, no, I can't, whatever. You can just be like, well, why? Why? What's going on? Right? Ask the question, ask things like why, ask things like how, right? Like, well, how are we going to, like, if there's a conflict and she wants something, well, how is that going to work though? How are we going to do that? Ask these questions and let her talk. The reason why is because we do default to our emotional mechanisms, which are rooted in our instinctual mammalian brain. And so during conflicts, we fall into our mammalian brain, and her mammalian brain is to want to protect herself, her being the weaker, and having historically, even though she could make more money in real life, historically, women didn't pull in the resources and didn't protect, right? That they relied on men to do that. So they have a stronger need than you, believe it or not, on an instinctual level to be heard and understood so that they know that their needs will be met. You as the man are perceived as in charge, or at least you should be. And so if you're in charge of making sure that, things happen and needs are met, then that means that you need to be the listener so that you understand what, in this case, and this is used in leadership communication, you understand what your subordinates need, want, and what their concerns are. And then you make the decision. Even if the decision is no, we're not going to do what you want, at least the other person knows that, okay, he heard me out. He understands what my needs are. And I trust that my partner is going to take care of my needs. And so even though he's not doing what I want, I trust that my needs and concerns are going to be addressed or taken care of anyway, by doing it his way. And so that's, you bring down that need for a woman to, on an instinctual level, for a woman to try to have power in that sense when she feels like her needs will be met because you were a good listener, right? And so that's why in the model, you shut your mouth, you just listen, and she has permission to emote. She just doesn't have permission to attack you and do toxic stuff. So she's doing that. She's using the 4 horsemen, like getting defensive or attacking you, or, being contemptuous, calling you names, right? That's when you stop the conversation, say, listen, we don't want to talk to each other like that. So, if emotions are too high, we'll talk later. Remove yourself from the situation. It's not stonewalling. You're just setting the standards for what, the communication is going to be like, so that it's going to be healthy and not toxic. And if she's too emotional to do that, or if you're too emotional to do that, it's healthy to take some time away, even if it's just 10 minutes, or even if it's a day or two, and then come back with cooler heads, right? And so that's not stonewalling. That's taking a break or a pause to allow your emotions to chill. All right. Those are 2 different things. And so you don't allow toxic communication, but she's allowed to emote. She's allowed to tell you what's going on, and don't interrupt her. Just ask questions. And the you part is to understand what her perspective is, what she's saying, what she's not saying, and kind of empathetically understand where she's coming from. When you have that understanding, now you're in a better position as a leader to make a decision. And now you also want to make sure that your partner has the, we'll say buy-in to want to make that decision with you. And so that's where you ask clarity questions or you make clarity statements. Like, in this case, if the medication was actually concern for her health, it could have been like, so your concern is that you're afraid you're going to get this medication and it's going to affect the baby. Is that what I hear you saying? But it's not that you're just being inconsiderate. You would do other things I needed, but this is just something you're not wanting to do right now. Is that what I understand you're telling me, right? That's a clarity statement. Or if she's making statements that aren't true, you'd be like, well, wait a second. You say I get mad all the time, but I don't know, when was the last time I got really angry with you? Because I can't remember the last time, well, it was last month. Okay. Well, last month, but that's not all the time then, right? Okay. Just making sure, like, you see, you can bring things to reality because the emotional language tends to not exist in reality a lot of times. And so that's what you do with the C part of L.U.C.A. And then the A part is just the action plan. The action plan could have been like, listen, I need you to be more conscientious and I need you to do the things I'm asking. And if you're not doing them, then you're not being the partner that I would want to keep. And that's not going to be good for me. And if she still refuses and is in non-compliance, now you start removing your time, attention, and energy towards the things that she wants to have in the relationship, right? Not freak out and say, well, then you're not taking the keys then. Okay. That's not how it works. But it's instead is really, what is it that she's relying on you for as a man that you would remove because you don't want to spend time with somebody who's not, behaving and treating you the way that you would expect to be treated in the relationship. Right. So that's your leverage is to remove time, attention, energy, and to continue down that pathway until if she's just not going to do and be the person you need her to be, then yes, it ends up being a breakup. But it doesn't have to go all that far. Usually, if you're vetting the right way, when you say the action plan, they're going to comply. And a big mistake with a lot of guys is they're trying to get her to understand and agree. You don't need understanding or agreement. What you need is compliance. All right. She can disagree with you and have no idea what you're talking about. But if she does what you're asking, that's what's the most important. That means she's deferring to you as the leader in the relationship. Now, if she wants to understand, she can ask questions, and you can definitely help her with that understanding. And that's not explaining in the same way that deering is. If she's genuinely looking to try to understand and not just challenge you and try to win the argument, then it's okay to be like, yeah, like, okay, here's why we're doing this. You know what I mean? And at the end of the day, that might help her. But when someone complies, what happens is when they're doing something and they're complying, then they start to want to understand why they're doing it other than just to follow your lead, and so then they start asking more questions about it instead of just being digging their heels in the sand. And then they're like, okay, and that could turn into like, so for example, let's say you're like, listen, I don't like your social media behavior. I think that if you're in a relationship, you need to do relationship behaviors. And so some of the stuff needs to change. She might be like, well, this, that, and the other, argue about it, but then she doesn't agree. She doesn't fully understand, but she complies. She doesn't do the behavior that she was doing before. In the process of that, she might go, well, I understand. She's now trying to understand your point of view. I don't necessarily agree, but I do understand why he says that, and she's going to sort of start to defend that viewpoint, even if she doesn't fully agree. And then oftentimes that grows into agreement. Like a year later, the same girl that was challenging you could be telling her friend that to be a good girl in a relationship, you have to change your social media behavior, right? Like she could literally and that's how a girl will take your frame. A girl doesn't take your frame because you try to force her into it. A girl takes your frame through compliance. She trusts your leadership. She does the thing because she trusts that it's going to work out by following your lead, and she has that trust in you in the relationship. And and through compliance, she'll get into understanding and agreement later on. And that's how she comes more and more into your frame. She gets better and better results, by working things out with you, expressing her needs in that communication. And then when the action plan is stated, as a couple, you go through with that action plan. Now, let's say you do an action plan and she says, I don't like that action plan. I think there's some things wrong. And she expresses it. If she's right in what she's expressing, you just change the action plan. You're still in charge. She should be the person that gives you her input as your relationship partner should be at the highest level, when it comes to your relationship decisions. Her input's the most important. If you change what the action plan is because she gives you that input, it's still your decision. You're still in charge. The thing is, as a partner, she has to be willing to surrender to the relationship and follow your lead. Unfortunately, this day and age, especially in the United States, as John likes to point out with his heaven of Japanese women that he has over there, that women are trained not to trust men. That's what feminist narrative is. It's don't trust a man because masculinity is bad. And so I can't trust a man, which means my natural default to follow the lead of a dominant man can't be something I allow myself to do because I'm going to get screwed over. My needs won't be met. I'll be harmed. And so women, unfortunately, come to the relationship a lot of times with this mental framework that's socially conditioned where they can't trust you. And this is why they use all of these manipulative tactics to try to have power. It's a lack of trust in men in general. And
Right. And
so,
it's typically, I would like to add on to that. It's typically because they're raised by women who don't have these relationship skills, who don't trust men, and they place this distrust into their daughters from a young age. So now you have a generation of women who don't know how to facilitate relationships, raising daughters with their broken belief systems. So they too don't know how to facilitate healthy relationships. And when churches and stuff talk about like generational curses and demons following, the father to the son and the mother to the daughter and all that, that's the real generational cursing. It's like, and honestly, I'm going to be very crass right here, but the reality is you have a generation of sluts raising women, like becoming single mothers who are putting their tendencies into these young girls.
Yeah, well,
And you've seen it too. You've seen it firsthand. I've seen it firsthand. The most devastating thing a woman can have in her life, if she wants to be in a relationship, are single friends and a single mother.
Yeah,
a single mother to top it off.
Yeah, listening to her dumb friends for sure, who don't have successful relationships, who want to pull her down into their framework of not having successful relationships, right?
Yep.
And so women are perpetually unhappy today, and they don't know why. It's not even, it's not always even their faults necessarily, because they don't know why. They were sold this narrative that, in order to be valuable, they have to have masculine traits. And by the way, masculinity is also bad. And therefore you can't trust it. You have to actually change the guy you're with and form him into your partner, which means enslave him, where you're the primary decision maker. And that's why all of these experts claimed gaslighting, because he's saying she's a bad wife because she doesn't do wifely duties, but that doesn't mean she's a bad wife. So that's gaslighting. Well, wait a second. In some relationships, and I would argue the healthy ones, there are duties and things and expectations that the woman should have on herself that are being imposed by the guy, because he's the guy that is agreeing to be in relationship with her. Like, I'm not going to get in a business deal with you, but I only agree to the negotiated terms that this other guy over here says, right. Or that I say. And your terms for the negotiation are bullshit, John. You're not allowed to have them. That makes you a toxic business partner. You're not allowed to give me your input on what your terms are for our business relationship. Only I can dictate it based on how I feel today. That's how crazy the narrative is. You know what I mean? And guys buy into it. They don't understand that it's not toxic for a guy to be like, hey, if I'm making $1 million, millions of dollars a year, and I'm doing all of this stuff, and I'm, running a production team, and I'm doing all this crap, and also going to do things around like the man chores and different things, I expect my wife to be conscientious and to take care of me and to do certain things. Like, there's nothing wrong with that expectation. That's not abusive. And if that's his definition of what a good wife is, God bless him. My only fault on him is not getting rid of the one who wasn't meeting the standard. Right. So instead of being a toxic partner, Don't be in the relationship with a person who doesn't agree with your standards. Let her go and find somebody else who will be a better partner, who agrees with your standards. There's plenty of women who are like, wait a second, do anything I want, live in $1 million house, have everything I could ask for, just have good sex and be a good partner, to, you know, do things, be conscientious. Like, I don't even have to go to work. I just need to, like, hey, you need anything? I'm making dinner tonight. You know what I mean? I'm going to run some errands. Hey, let me take care of that for you, babe. Sit down and relax. You know, that's too much to fucking ask. Like, kidding me? You know, and the reality is there's plenty of women out there who would totally do that and are totally cool with that. But then those
he's
women
gonna
are aimed by other westernized women, right?
Yeah, he's gonna replace her. She's not gonna replace him.
Oh yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, she'll have 10 million bucks. So she will get another dude, but it'll be, what's that?
Not a guy. Yeah.
It's not going to be like somebody that she's happy with. And that's what it boils down to. The happiness piece is subjective. And unfortunately, women are being set up to be unhappy perpetually, you know, even when they're rich, even if they, you know, walk away from a divorce settlement free and rich. You know, some neighborhoods out here in Michigan, like, you know, Rochester area, Birmingham, these are high net worth areas. The bars are filled with women over 40, drunk on wine, drooling over some 20-year-old guy or me, and I'm not in my 20s, trying to find a guy, bitching about men, completely unhappy, unpleasant to be around when it comes to that, because they're not going to do anything for a guy. No, you know what I mean? They're not going to do anything for a dude. I did that once and my husband was this and he's a jerk and I'm not going to be, you know, he needs to whatever, you know, do the things for me. And it's this taking value and not giving value mindset that these divorced middle-aged women have that are, you know, post-wall women, and they're destroying themselves because they can't compete. Like why people ask me, why would I go for a younger girl in her 20s? Because most of the women who are post-wall divorced are unpleasant. There was nothing stopping me from hooking up with somebody in her 40s. If she was pretty, awesome, a good partner, you know what I mean? Like, and there's women out there that are like that, but they're just way smaller in numbers. It's like, no, you know, they're bitter. You know what I mean? They're upset. They're going to want to execute power in a relationship in a way that's unhealthy, that's going to make both their partners unhappy. And I won't participate in it. I won't do it. You know what I mean? I'd rather deal with like some 20-year-olds, 20 something, not 20, but some girl in her mid 20s and some of the bullshit you might deal with that. I'd rather deal with that if she's not fighting me all the time for frame and trying to be, you know, trying to have power over me in weird, toxic ways. Like, no, thank you. No, thank you. You know?
And she's just at the end of the day, this is just a high ego woman. And I'm sorry to say it again, but fucking, that's American women, bro. These bitches are crazy. They fucking think their shit don't stink. They think that no one's going to catch them on their treachery. And again, if you really loved this man and you cared about the future of your children, right? You wouldn't commit this absolute act of betrayal and treachery.
Yeah, no value for the dad in this, and the father figure.
On a global fucking level. On a global level. And, you know, again, that just shows you, like, this chick is, like, just a dirtbag. An absolute dirtbag. And Candace Owens kind of outed herself as a dirtbag, too, for piling on.
I'm very disappointed in her because I do like some of her other work. I'm very disappointed in the stance that she took and that the Daily Wire took, weaponizing their breakup and their relationship against him and not fighting clean over their business deal. They could have kept it about the business deal and said that this guy's a piece of crap and his ego's out of control and we're glad to not have him, and they would have been fine. I wouldn't have had any negative thoughts about it. But now they're weaponizing this, using, you know, the societal narrative that's very negative towards masculinity, and taking what is a relationship conflict that has been ongoing past this 3 minutes, probably for years, taking a conflict where two people are trying to have power over each other. Two people are at fault in different ways and demonizing a guy for it. And that's horrible. It's horrible. And then I'm not defending to those who want to be dumb. I'm not defending Steven Crowder, and I'm a big Steven Crowder fan. It's nothing to do with that. I'm just being objective. There's things he did wrong here for sure. Mainly sticking around with somebody he's not happy with, right? And then but there's things she did wrong. It goes both ways, and it's not a balanced view that people are taking. It's too bad. I'm going to go through some just questions, and if you guys have super chats, that would be nice. I saw the $20 super chat. Thank you very much.
Paul, it's 3 a.m. I'm going to split.
Why don't you bounce? I'll go through these questions, man. But thank you for jumping on, brother. I appreciate it.
I'll see you next time, guys. You guys take care. Thank you so much for having me, Paul. It's 3 o'clock. I
Get
gotta
rest,
go to bed.
man. Get rest. I'm about to close off anyways. I'm just going to address the questions for these guys. All right, brother. Thanks again, dude. Have a good night. All right. So we'll blow through some questions and call it. Okay. I made the observation. Yes. On rule 0, we talked about this. If role, and I said this on my Twitter, if roles were reversed, the woman would not be called the toxic person. In fact, a lot of people would say, well, he's upsetting her because he's not doing his chores. All right. If the roles were reversed and Steven Crowder was the wife and the wife was the husband in this, all right, it would be, why isn't that husband doing his chores and helping out this poor pregnant woman? And they would completely ignore the way that she's breaking it down and talking, and the contemptuousness in a lot of ways. That's what I think. I think if roles are reversed, people would side with the woman once again. That would be the natural default. And it happens all the time. We see it all the time where women are behaving badly and, they're defended for it. All right. So let's continue. And just kind of going through, I went all the way to the top. No, John was not kicked out of rule 0. That's not even, he's got his own, he's very, very busy with his own brand actually. So yes, I did break down the frame, of the situation and kind of where they're at. And I do want to reiterate once again, his communication was toxic. And if he thinks she's not a good wife, if that's been the stance that he's had, it shouldn't have taken this long. Don't get to a point where you're going to be toxic in your relationship. Don't get to a point where you feel like your only result is to be contemptuous and degrade your partner for not meeting your standards. Okay. Focus on the standards, focus on your expectations for the relationships. Maybe your expectations are fair. Maybe they're not fair. Have that discussion with your partner. And if you guys don't match up, do the healthy thing and just break up, walk away from each other, at least as two people that care about each other, but where it didn't work out. Right. And we can talk about women, this, women, that, their behavior. John's a little he lives in Japan now, so he gets shit all over American women. It's in his opinion is not invalid. But it's not about that though. It's about having the relationship that you would want. And if your partner doesn't match that and isn't willing to match it, and you guys can't see eye to eye, and this goes on the guy side or the girl side, don't take it to a point where you're acting toxic and using toxic communication towards your partner to try to get them to see your point of view or get them to fall in line. You just got to walk away from it, man. That's what you got to do. Use the skills that I give you in frame. Use the communication skills I give you in order to be healthy and a healthy communicator, right? And I've given those in this video. And if she's not willing to participate in that and be a good partner and meet your standards, well, you do got to go. You want the divorce to happen at that point, not a couple years or years later. I imagine it was more than just a couple. I imagine these signs showed themselves early. Maybe his relationship framework and how he viewed relationship changed over time, right? There's lots of possibilities. I would guess that was the case. And probably years ago, things should have left amicably. And then he wouldn't be in a circumstance where she's, filming an argument and then releasing it to a public to try to destroy his career as she exits the relationship in a toxic divorce. That does not have to happen to you. And some women will just do that because they're toxic, just like some guys will do that and try to leave you without resources because they're toxic, which I think he may have been doing. I've heard that he was trying to leave her broke or something, which, the courts will never allow that. But you don't want to be the toxic person in this. All right. That's what it is. Even if the other person is doing that, you don't want to become that person. Leave before it ever gets there. All right. Let's keep going. And questions. And if you have them, like a super chat's good because I'm just scrolling through all of the comments and I might not, even without a question mark, some of you guys you're not good at doing chats because you won't even put a question mark and know you got a question and you're not putting a question mark even for me to see that it's a damn question. So help me help you, if you want me to comment on some of what you're saying. Okay. Yes, he did. Yes, he needs. L.U.C.A is the lifesaver, dude, for your relationships. I'm telling you. And her acronym, by the way, is ENSA, but she'll fall in line with that if she's a healthy partner. And ENSA stands for the E is just emote and explain. So that's her job, is to get it all out. All right. And then the N is no toxic communication towards you when she does it. She can get mad, upset, cry. She can even yell, but as long as she's not calling you names, attacking, being super defensive, looking at you with contempt, or trying to shift the argument and stonewall, if she's doing that, then, if she's being healthy, then that's good. And that's what she, and then that, and so anyways, let's go into looking for more questions, blah, blah. Okay. We got smash like button. This one was the one I was looking for. Given that there's so many crazy toxic women out there, do you recommend having home camera system for protection? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I recommend it, particularly if you're single. If you're a single dude and you're out there dating and you're bringing chicks back to your place or whatever, I recommend first meeting them outside of the home. I know it's very common to do the Tinder hookup or the Hinge hookup, have them come directly to your place. That to me is a little bit lower value game. And a lot of guys who are high value guys do that. All right. But I say it's lower value game because guys who understand their value and know that they have resources to protect isn't just taking a girl right to her house right off the bat, because that girl having your address, there's been, there's incidences of theft. There's incidences of more than just the girl showing up at your house, right? Like maybe some dudes trying to steal your stuff. There's incidences of #MeToo happening, right? And a guy having no proof. You know what I mean? I came over for a drink and then, he forced himself on me kind of stuff, right? Those things that could happen that aren't when she sees a nice place and that the guy's in that top 10%. All right. When it comes to income, like a lot of women can, get very predatory on that. Not all women, of course, but there's that percentage and you have to protect yourself. Just like a woman needs to protect herself from predatory men, you guys need to protect yourself from predatory women. I don't recommend you hinge date her right to your house. Go somewhere nearby for a quiet drink or a coffee or something like that and vet that person out a little bit in person at least, or have some time with them, prior to going back to your place. But then if you are going back to your place, how much do you really know about that person, right? So, only enough to get yourself in trouble. So having cameras, yeah, I say it's good for overall security, and camera systems are really cheap nowadays. This question, does a belief in biblical definition of marriage trap men? That depends on what your biblical definition of marriage is. All right. So you'd have to expand on that. I've read the Bible, but I'm not considering myself a Bible scholar. There are more qualified people, to that. But I would say though, that biblically, and from what I know about Islam as well, and Judaism, the gender roles that are expressed in there, if can be done in a healthy way, right? It's not necessarily a trap. The trap isn't so much with the religious framework. The trap is really with how the state handles that contract. So you got to remember, you have the covenant of marriage, if you will, or the and then you have there's other terms for it. I think I'm screwing it up, but you have then the marriage by the state, the contractual marriage. The contractual marriage is not the same as the spiritual union or covenant of marriage. All right. And so you could be falling in line with your religion and getting into a healthy marriage where that framework and the way that you interpret your scripture and your religion, that framework is totally good for a successful relationship. But then the state has legal parameters that are much different and that are designed to harm you. Okay. Those two things can be in play at the same time. And so you need to be aware of that and handle the contract by the state accordingly and in a way that's fair. Don't confuse the two things. All right. Let's see. We got the super here. Thank you very much again, Jay Lee. Appreciate you. In the vetting stage, what do you look for to make sure a man is trustworthy? I fear disappointment, and some men are mean. Well, yeah. So in the vetting stage, what you want to look at is your personal values. What are your needs in the relationship? When you look at a relationship as a woman, what are your needs what needs do you have, right? And expect to be met by the guy you're committed to. And so from that, and you want to work from that standpoint. So you have a bunch of needs, right? You have sexual needs, emotional needs, personal values and beliefs, right? Resource needs, maybe needs in terms of logistics, needs in terms of like transactional needs, child rearing, if children are going to be a thing for you, right? You have a list of things that are things that you will want from the long-term relationship or the marriage or whatever. From those needs, make sure that you're being reasonable in what you want. And, it's not that hard to be reasonable, really, so don't think I'm saying that your expectations are unreasonable off the get-go. I'm definitely not saying that, but some people require perfection. I hear that from guys in the manosphere who are definitely not dating women. Okay. But they're on the internet a lot and they want to talk about their standards for women, and it's all bullshit. Okay. It's all a bunch of bullshit. And you got women out there railing about their standards for what they expect out of a man. Like, that's all bullshit too. All right. Some of those things are, this expectation that, it's just, they're expecting things that are not that important. Right. And they're expecting things that are not reasonable necessarily. But when you get down to reasonableness and what needs you want met, not just transactional, but again, emotional, attraction, desire, and sexual. Sexual is very, very important. Do not ignore the sexual, okay? Because women tend to ignore the sexual when they start vetting for relationships. And that's how you end up with the dichotomy of, I banged Chad over here, but now I settled down with, Brad, and Brad's okay, but nah, I don't necessarily like him as much, right? So you don't want to put yourself in that scenario. Make sure you're combining all the needs, including the Chad needs, all right? And now from there, you just go through and observe his behavior. And then you observe his past experiences too, and the things that he talks about and how he frames those past experiences. He's not, his past, he may have made mistakes, just like you may have made mistakes, but how are you talking about those mistakes? Are you justifying your mistakes? Are you justifying the things you did wrong and what you did and trying to, rationalize them and make them sound right when they were not right? That indicates, of course, that you're not really understanding of those mistakes, and you're not really improved from those mistakes, and that you will, in fact, make those same mistakes again. Well, same with, of course, with the guy, right? I mean, the guy's rationalizing and stuff, right? And not admitting or, to things that he's done wrong or whatever, not showing his faults as well as his successes. then that's something that is a red flag, right? And but you want to look at his actions. How does he treat you? But not just you. How does he treat other people? How does he treat the server? How does he treat his friends, his family, his parents, right? And obviously that's going to depend on the dynamic and how toxic the family is too. But these are other things that we want to look at, is how he shows up with his values. And then you're looking at the actions and those values that he shows up with and he demonstrates, and then you see if they match your needs. Does his values and how he sees, relationships and how he should behave and how he should interact in the world, do those things match well with what you need? Because if they don't match well, then you're not going to have a very good relationship with that person, right? And so instead of fearing disappointment and fearing a guy being mean to you, because that's now coming from a negative bias, just be open and observe and enjoy yourself. And that's what dating is about. People act like they don't like dating. I always found that strange. I love dating. Why I love dating? Because I always have a good time. Why? Because I'm a good time. That's why I bring the good time. I bring the good time, right? And then I get to learn about people. And, even if it doesn't work out, even if it's a terrible date, I cut it short and I laugh about it. It doesn't matter. And so dating is a chance for you to learn about people. And in the beginning stages, when you're vetting, that's what dating's for. Just have a good time, but then observe. Now, if you see somebody as a good potential partner, maybe you're having discussions and talks about values, right? Maybe you're expressing some of your needs and seeing if that's something that the guy, would be on board with understanding, right? You're coming to that understanding. But what you don't want to do is think that you're going to change a guy if his values and perceptions of the world don't match yours. If his behaviors and if the way he sees himself in the world doesn't match your needs and your values, don't come into that relationship thinking, well, I'm going to change him now then so that he can be different. He has to demonstrate that he wants to change anything to begin with and that he's capable of it. That's not your job to try to fix anybody. All right. So hopefully that's good advice there. And thanks for the $5. Okay. What else we got here? Yes, Gabby, I do have a bunch of videos on ENSA and L.U.C.A. A couple of them. I have a longer stream and I have a shorter clip from that stream that talks about it in greater detail. So if you do a search, you'll find it. What I'll do is I will find those videos and I'll pin them in the chat after this. So that's a great question, actually. And yeah, dude, you're welcome. All right. Asking me, are you doing videos on intergender dynamics and how females interact with each other? I can do those. I've seen how females treat each other terribly when a guy's involved. That is true, right? That can happen. So let's see. Something else. I had a naysayer, where is she? So here's the thing. Hide the sausage. Do you have a channel? What's going on with that? He wouldn't let her go to the shop. Well, would he have let her work? Well, I mean, does she need to work? He makes 10 million. He's worth $20 million. Is that what she needs? Maybe his expectation is that she's a stay-at-home wife. And if her expectation is to not be that person, well, then she should have executed the exit strategy a long time ago, right? Instead of having kids with the guy and benefiting from his resources and then taking his resources because she doesn't like the standards. If she didn't like, the standards, she wants to go to work and she wants to do, she wants to live that lifestyle, then she needs to find somebody who's going to be a partner to that. Steven Crowder is a traditional Christian who wants a stay-at-home wife and he makes plenty of money to provide for that. If she didn't like that, then she shouldn't have stuck around. All right. Instead, she would stick it out and of course have these fights with them. Right now on this comment, he is not a good guy. Well, okay. So, you don't know that. And this is what I mean about the bias, right? I can't say whether he's a good guy or not. I have no idea. He doesn't look like a good guy in this video clip, for sure. He doesn't look like he's somebody that I would consider a good dude, right? That's just because, he's communicating in a weak and rather toxic way. 100% he is. But can we say that he shouldn't have access to his children now? And I think maybe you're falling into that hindbrain sort of imperative of ostracize the weaker male, right? And I understand. I do. I understand that point of view, but it's not necessarily right. You know what I mean? And so we need to be aware of what our chimp brain is telling us to do. When I watch this video, my chimp brain tells me this guy is a total douchebag, right? Just like a lot of you guys. I am not in disagreement. And my chimp brain does not tell me like that this is like the guy, but when I break it down logically, what I'm seeing is a snapshot in time, 3 minutes of this guy's and her in his life out of a 9-minute relationship where he's not behaving very well, but I am also seeing the manipulation that she's executing in the relationship. And I can't tell you who's right or wrong just from this clip, but I can tell you that, her releasing the video, as John mentioned, and basically trying to leverage to get as much as she can in a divorce settlement, and him also trying to leverage and fight her, neither one is right. And she is no victim. She is not an abuse victim. Is he a narcissist? Maybe. Okay. Maybe not though. Maybe he's just in a relationship paradigm that he's just doesn't have the skills and the coping mechanisms to handle, which is a lot of men, right? And why I do what I do. But it sounds like she's also in a toxic scenario and being toxic rather in this scenario. And I would argue in the power struggle, she's the one who is winning. She's actually the one who is in control. I don't think he is a victim. I don't think there are any victims in this, but if I had to pick one, it ain't going to be her. She had the frame in that argument. Just because he was more cohesive, using cohesion, she had the power, she had the control, and she had manipulated him emotionally to have that scenario happen, and then took the car and did whatever she wanted. He started talking to attorney and all these things. Whenever he made a move, she is now moving 2 or 3 steps ahead. She has her attorney in line, and she's, she can say he tried to, clean out, like not, take all the assets. But the reality is no legal system will allow that to occur. So even if he tried to do that, she's trying to do it too. Okay. You have 2 people who are fighting each other in a very combative divorce scenario. And, she's the one who's winning at this point. Because he has more to lose. He has a career and a public persona to protect, and she is attempting to destroy that by releasing really what should be a private argument between 2 people. All right. And so that's just something to keep in mind here. You know what I mean? Was it orchestrated to leverage in the divorce? More than likely, yes. But I don't even think it's about that. It's just becomes about winning. You see, when 2 people are behaving psychopathically, Machiavellian, and narcissistically, when any person's behaving that way, they, or I should say, when relationships are breaking up, okay, people can fall into narcissistic, Machiavellian, or, psychopathic even behaviors towards each other. Normal people who are not diagnosably personality disordered can treat each other very, very badly. Anyone who has experience dealing with relationships and couples and breakups knows that this is true. You have women out there that are not bad women who have done very horrible, toxic things to their partner in a breakup. And some of you guys listening to me know that you've been guilty of it, you know. And guys, same thing. There's a lot of men out there who have been, you know, toxic to their partners at different times during breakups. That happens. People exhibit these narcissistic behaviors even when they're not clinical narcissists. So it could have been about the divorce proceeding, but I think it's probably more just about winning. See, when you remove the humanness of the other person and you no longer have empathy and sympathy for that other human being, and you no longer have appreciation for that human being, especially, by the way, women, and I'm sorry, but this is just the way it is. Women classically are more combative in divorces. All right. So that's a lesson here. Men, you are wired to take care of the baby maker. It's why so many men are running to her defense, seeing a pregnant woman, despite the fact that it's pretty clear when you break it down that this is just an argument between two people. All right. You have that instinct to take care of the woman because she takes care of the children. Her instinct is not to take care of you as a man. She doesn't want to be married to another child. She wants to be married to a partner, and instinctively a partner who's a masculine partner that leads. Okay. And so when she loses that attraction and loses the benefits of being with you and finds more benefits of being away from you, right? And there are no benefits to treating you well. All right. So when she loses those benefits, and that means emotionally, right, as well as transactionally, you're going to deal with somebody who is out to hurt you. I think her releasing this was out to hurt him. She could have kept this private and kept this between the judge, you know, and whatever as evidence. Instead, she sent it to the Daily Wire so they could do hit pieces on it. She is the one who is combative. She is the one who is trying to win here. In doing, by the way, that's psychopathic behavior. Trying to hurt and harm somebody else just for the sake of winning is psychopathic. There's no altruistic reasoning behind her behavior. And so I'm not saying she's a psychopath. I'm not even saying she's a bad person. But I don't know those things, but I do know that good people can sometimes be bad people in breakups. And what you need to do is be aware of that. You need to protect yourself from that and from your partner, particularly if you're a man. You need to protect yourself because you're going to be like, well, I'm going to try to be fair and take care of her. And she is coming after everything. And those of you guys who have been through the divorce machine know how that works. All right. So don't fall victim to that. And I'm not saying that you need to be a toxic partner as well. I'm just saying you need to protect yourself. All right. That's first and foremost. And then back to the second thing is do not stick around in a relationship where your values don't match. Use good communication skills, right? And have gratitude, have care, have love for your partner. And if you don't, and that's not happening anymore, then you need to be exiting the relationship. You're not going to teach her a different way. And you women are not going to teach the man a different way. All right. People need to be willing and wanting to change. And if that is not what's happening, then you need to you give it the opportunity for change. You try to have discussions, right, in a healthy way. But if the other person's not listening and not participating, you have to start moving towards the exit. And it's up to your partner to decide that it's worth it to them to want to start, communicating with you on what needs to happen so that exit doesn't occur, right? And so the relationship stays together. It's up to your partner to want to make it work when they're the ones not meeting your expectations and standards. All right. Don't be the toxic partner. Guys, do not be this guy. That's the biggest lesson here. Because if you turn into the toxic partner even though he's not abusive and there's two people in an argument, you will be demonized by the public eye, by the courts, by your family, and by your friends. That's the reality of it. You have to be extra, and what that means is just don't allow yourself to fall so far into being so toxic. There's not going to be an argument here or there where you're going to make a mistake. It happens all the time, right? I've done it in every one of my relationships. I've made the mistake where I'm doing something that isn't good, and then I have to apologize for it or whatever. And yes, you can apologize. This idea of not apologizing, it's not manly and all this bullshit, that's fucking bullshit. And I'll tell every single one of my friends that want to disagree, I'll beat them in that argument. I don't care who it is, right? Apologies are healthy when it's not from a position of weakness and a position of submission. There's a way to do it. If you make a mistake, having ownership and accountability, it's fine. But don't be the person who's making the mistake all the time, constantly, right? Clean up your behavior. And if she's not willing to be a good partner to you, you got to work on the exit instead of finding yourself in this situation where you're banging your head against the wall. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I hate hearing the fake I love you crap too, man. I'll tell you what, it's bullshit. And, here, it's it's BS when you listen to that. And it's surprising to me, but I guess it goes back to standards, man. Like, I don't think a lot of these content creators, even the ones that I like, I'm not talking my Rule Zero fam either. I'm not talking about some of the people I'm really close to, but just some people that I know of, and I've seen some of their stuff, and they got 500,000 to 1 million subscribers. Some of them, some of the people in the psychological community, and they're more, we'll say mainstream, if you will. But I expected more integrity from some of these people. And I don't know if it's an integrity issue or just not seeing, the writing on the wall, not seeing past their instinctual desires of protecting the pregnant woman, right? But I think a lot of it too is the court of public opinion. And when some of these people with a lot of subscribers and a huge following, I think they're placating to their audience after a point, and maybe it's difficult for them to break free from that, and so, yeah. And we're about to end this bad boy. What do we got? One last thought. Rambo Troutman. Man, you guys, I swear. Currently going through a love bombing situation with coworker. Okay, are you in a relationship with her though? I'm unsure about this. And I'm triggered with jealousy as she's sleeping with another guy at work. He's a breeder, I'm not. How can I make sense of these emotions? Well, dude, I'm confused because you're saying a coworker, right? But are you sleeping with her? Are you banging her and she's banging somebody else too? Or is she just, stringing you along and she's banging somebody else, right? I think that at the end of the day, what it sounds like is that she is, and if you want to comment more and expand on your post here, that would be just fine. It sounds like you're hung up on a girl and in the friend zone or in the attention zone, while she has a breeder, as you say, as I've said before too, that she's banging. What that means is that you need to disconnect and abandon ship. All right. And that is correct. All right. You need to get out. You need to stop. This is not a relationship, right? That is to your standard. And, you need to take yourself out of the scarcity of competing for some chick that is just using you for attention. All right. And make yourself the higher value target by just removing your time and attention and putting it into better women. There's plenty of better looking women out there that are not going to be banging someone else and then trying to string you along. You're only getting strung along because you're allowing that to happen. You know what I mean? This is actually on you. You are allowing it to happen. She might be a piece of crap for all I know. I don't have her side of it, but you're allowing her to, so you have to stop allowing her. And that's how you'll just finding a better person. And so that tells me there's some inner game issues with you, so yeah. So, there's no relationship, you know what I mean? So there's an inner game issue here, man. Like, you are infatuated with somebody, you're propping her up as a fantasy partner that isn't a real, you're not seeing her for what she is, who she is, you know what I mean? And okay, so then this is it. She doesn't know me, but came on to me really strong for a few months. Okay, but so what? You know what I mean? She either, now there could be things you're lacking in game, right? And social skills to move it along in the direction you want. So then you can work on those things. But the reality is she's hooking up with somebody else, right? And she's not hooking up with you. And at that point, it's not necessarily that you're better or worse than the other guy. He could be worse than you. He could be better than, it doesn't matter. All right. It's subjective to her opinion anyway. All you need to do is focus on making yourself better and dating other women. But more so than that, though, I think you need to work on your inner game skills, right? Because there's something with you that's causing you to have these attachments to people who don't reciprocate those emotions. You know what I mean? And so that's the unhealthy part. So there's something going on up here, inner game wise. And so, you know, it could be something that's diagnosable and you need to talk to a therapist. Okay. I don't know. If that's not what it is, that's not going to be helpful. I would say, as far as things to do to help you, my Alpha Mindset course has a ton of things in there for your mental self-development that, you know, it's lower cost than my other programs, and you can just do that and start working through that program. I just started my first of many, because it's looking like it's going to turn out awesome. Just started my first of many inner game boot camp. So neuro behavioral conditioning boot camp, which is like 60-day challenge, and where I closely coach a guy or a series of guys. You know, I take on, you know, no more than 10 to 15 people, like a quarter or semester, if you want to call it, and closely work with a guy, coaching him to success for 60 days and removing inner game problems, any kind of trauma, any obstacles to getting what you want. We work on that in a program like that. So it's a lot more, you know, intense, and there's guidance and there's exercises and things you could do. So that's a suggestion I can make. You know, my year-long program might not be for you if this is where you're at, because you have too much. You know, you could get in my year-long Mastermind and Frame program. You know, we could interview for it, but it would be under conditions of working on stuff going on up in here, because your problem is first and foremost the attachment. I can teach you all the game skills in the world, but if you have an unhealthy attachment, you know, you're doing unhealthy, you know, behaviors and having unhealthy emotions to women that don't reciprocate those emotions, that's going to affect your dating life. That's not going to be good. There's no amount of skills I can give you that's going to have you overcome that by itself. So we need to work on that. Yes, I do one-on-one consultants. I do. I'm very, very booked though. With my programs. So my one-on-one, but you can get in on my calendar. My one-on-one, I recommend, you know, doing one of my programs, because you'll save on cost for one-on-one time with me. You know, but it's there for you. One-on-one stuff is there. It's the website is, you know, apexmindset.net, and I'll put it right there in the chat. You go there, it'll take you to, you know, everything you need to book something with me. And those kinds of problems here, like, I'm happy to help you out with that, man. So, you know, let's do it. Let's get you guys better. Let's get you guys having healthy relationships, getting what you want, both men and women, everybody. Let's do it together, and let's change that paradigm out there, so we can stop calling people abusive who aren't abusive. Stop demonizing men for the way that they, you know, for mistakes in their communication styles, or demonizing women for their history or backgrounds as well. Let's focus more on doing better going forward. All right. That's what I would like to see. Thanks again, guys, for the higher level discussion. I'll catch you next time.